The Fast Life Podcast is brought to you by Simpson Motorcycle Helmets. Simpson is a great gift for the holiday season. My first Simpson was a Christmas present from my wife, which became my favorite helmet, my Samuel Jackson one. I know you've seen it on the Instagrams. Go check out all the helmet models, finishes, and visor options at SimpsonMotorcycleHelmets.com and check them out on Instagram at Simpson Motorcycle Helmets. In my opinion, one great gift idea for the riders in your life is the Lexan Moto products, specifically the FT4 Pro, which is the first in the industry to have a patented utility light with SOS function, Type-C USB charging, which is the fastest on the market, and up to 15 hours of battery life, and up to 1.2 miles of intercom range. And they just recently released wireless RAM mount phone charging system, which is pretty badass. Looking to get my hands on that pretty soon. Head over to LexanMotorcycle.com and see the many other products and use Fast Life at checkout for 15% off. You can also catch the Lexan team at Chicago and New York IMS shows, and as always on Instagram at Lexan Moto. I have been running ThunderMax ECM on my EFI equipped bikes since 2012. One of the best features is the ability to auto-tune to your bike's upgrades and riding conditions. Do you want to install your own cam or big bore kit and don't have access to a dyno or dyno tuner? Then ThunderMax is your go-to for reliable performance. Pair it up with the handlebar display and have all your engine's vitals in your field of view while you ride. To check out their ECM applications and many other products to give your Harley-Davidson some new life, head on over to shoptmax.com and follow ThunderMax EFI on Instagram. Dream Rides is the spot. If you're looking for a shop to build, maintain, repair, or upgrade your Harley-Davidson, John Jessup is your dude. His shop in Stockton, California is the spot for in-house dyno tuning, parts, and bike sales. Another great place for gift ideas for your people or yourself is their extensive online store at teamdreamrides.com, which is offering 100 days, same as cash financing on products. All you need is a job and a bank account. And don't forget to use offer code FASTLIFE for 10% off and give John and the team a follow at DreamRidesJohn on Instagram. Paint Huffer Metal Flake is the industry standard when it comes to flake. Check out painthuffer.com. Use FastLife12 and check at checkout, for 10% off, and follow Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram and stay up to date on all the product releases, sales, and works of art produced by many artists from around the world. Big Bear Performance is a go-to for high-quality performance products for your Harley-Davidson, along with being the industry leader in Öhlins, suspension sales, service, and tuning. Check out BigBearPerformance.com, and you can always give Kevin a call and get the info and answers for your motorcycle's upgrades at 909-479-7788, and give him and his team a follow at Big Bear Choppers on Instagram. Welcome back, guys. It's another podcast for you here this December, getting close to Christmas. Hope you guys are checking out some of these sponsors. They got great products for you guys. For you, your wife, your homies. If your friends are close like that and y'all buy each other presents and shit. Check them all out, man. All these sponsors have awesome shit that I think that you guys would all love to own, use, or try. So check them out. I also want to thank all you new Patreon subscribers, helping this podcast grow, helping it come out more, helping us do all the things that you see us trying to do. So we appreciate that. If you're interested in donating, go to FastLifeGarage.com, and on the front page there's a link where you can go straight to our Patreon and donate $1, $5, whatever you feel comfortable doing to help keep this podcast operational. So thank you guys for doing that. This podcast, man, you'll hear, we talked about it a couple times in the actual conversation, but John Jackson is a photographer and well-known in the motorcycle industry. He's shot for almost every magazine, if not every magazine in the motorcycle scene, and tons of them in the automotive scene. He's just a great dude, and he's well respected and loved from everybody I've talked to that knows this guy. And I met him for the first time, an hour before we shot this podcast. So really good dude, and I'm thankful that he took the time out to do this, and really honored that he shot my bike. So, anyways, news updates at the shop, man, we've actually been busting ass on the weekends trying to get this thing done and ready for January 4th, the IMS weekend here in Dallas. Man, I think we're gonna make it. I got to actually get some paint work done to make some money to afford to finish it, but for the most part, it's coming together. We got the second floor ready to start framing up top. We got the booth redone. The stairs kind of need to be finished out, and we got quite a bit to do, but I think we're going to be able to get it done. And we're looking at having a huge party here and bringing in a lot of people and, just having a good time, man. Just giving, IMS is a big show that has lots of cool shit, but it has so many different areas of the motorcycle world that, it could be hard to find your spot, like the things that interest you. So, we want to piggyback off of it and just create an event here at the shop that, hopefully I've been talking with some of the people you've heard on this podcast that will be in town. And it'll be a good place to have a lot of cool guys here, cool shops, cool. We're thinking about having vendors out here just to set up and show off their products and stuff that they do. So I don't know. We're looking at a lot of stuff, and I'm excited. Oh man, talking on the new mics that Patreon actually paid for. The new Rode podcast mics, and hopefully they sound good. The podcast wasn't recorded in it, but the next podcast will be, so looking forward to that. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. Here we go. John Jackson, not stock photo. Let's do it.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
All right, John, we're doing it.
Oh, are we live now?
Yeah.
As I just slam my Whataburger cup on the table. And do you intentionally have no signal here so that people can't be playing on their phones while they're...
No, that's just we're in the country.
We're in the country. Wax the hatchy.
Wax the snatchy is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
But no, it's I just got internet in here like 6 months ago.
Oh, nice.
I've been here 3 years.
Cool.
And you shut the doors and you're fucking cut off from the world. Sometimes it's nice.
It's not a bad thing.
Until
Just get some good music.
Yeah,
and
exactly. But
work.
you have to already download the music on your phone. You can't fucking stream that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm sure
Well,
the
shit, man,
local
so-
radio stations are probably not the best either.
Yeah, well, fuck. Who listens to the radio anymore?
Yeah, good point.
I haven't listened to the radio.
All we listen to is podcasts now, right?
I think that's the nerdiest thing to do. It's funny how like talk radio was always a thing, and most people, at least in my generation, we didn't do it. You know what I mean? And then the older you get, the more interesting the concept is of just listening to people talk about things you're interested in rather than just hearing that same song 4 times in one day. You know what I mean? So,
well, it's funny too because you'll listen to someone talk about what they do and what their art is and what they're into, and it's like people just did stuff and didn't talk about it back in the day.
Yeah.
It seems like it's you might see something on a TV program about a documentary, and it's like, oh, that's cool. And it's like, how do we ever get anything done?
Well, the disconnect is getting further and further away from like remembering what it was like before all this technology, all this connectivity with everything. It's becoming, I went to high school and we had beepers, right?
Yep.
I graduated in 2001, so the cell phone was out, but you could easily live without a cell phone. It wasn't a necessity in your pocket yet. You know what I mean? And now, kids nowadays have cell phones. They get laid faster in high school.
Yep.
Like we had to work. These motherfuckers can send emojis and stuff.
They don't even have to work for porn now.
Exactly, dude. Like I had to hide magazines and shit. Now it's like I just got to clear my browser so my wife doesn't find out.
Yep.
The
phone narcs on you now. It shows your most frequented websites. So you can't be like...
Well, that's why you got to clear the history right afterwards.
Yeah.
There's a ritual.
Well, I see my wife once a month if I'm lucky, so I'm usually pretty safe.
There you go.
That's how I stay married.
There you go.
Yep.
So, man, I guess what I really want to know, we've been hanging out for the last couple hours now, but I've been trying to avoid talking about this, but you're very known in the automotive world, from the motorcycle shit to the car shit, and now you're a fucking biker.
Yep.
You know?
Biker.
Yeah.
I told my wife I was going to start the podcast with that classic scene from Super Troopers when I was like, I came here for the biker podcast, and I'm like, I don't see any bicycles, and I'm like, oh, biker. So, yeah, I love motorcycles. I love cars. And then I was getting really fat driving across the country, eating Whataburger. Mm-hmm. And and then, like, Brian Clock, who was on your podcast, the first time I went to Mitchell, takes me to this place called the Depot, and he goes, "Oh, get the steak sandwich. You'll like it." And this thing, no lie, was taller than this microphone and taller than this large Whataburger cup.
Yeah.
And it's like, people would take me to these great places all over the U.S. and be like, "Oh, they're known for this or known for that." So you're not like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a salad," you know?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. You wanna be
but
a
luckily, I dropped 70 pounds riding bicycles, and luckily I found mountain bikes instead of road bikes, and so everything's gotten cooler at least. And I get to ride with some cool guys like the guys out of Austin, Team Trail Party, and stuff like that. But you know, you got to do something to stay in shape. I'm 47 now, and it's. You hurt from going to sleep now. You know, you don't have to fall off of something to hurt anymore.
You know, we were talking about Louis C.K. earlier.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that bit where he was talking about, like, putting on his socks?
Oh, yeah.
And, like, how everything was getting shut. Like, dude, that has been my life for the last couple of years.
Yep.
And it couldn't be more accurate, man. So
I also forgot, before this started, my wife said I need to make a disclaimer. She does not approve of anything I will probably say on this podcast. So this does not reflect on her personally.
For sure. Yeah. Well, you know, like, honestly, man, like we were just kind of talking about the disconnect. Like, what was your path into photography?
So I've always been a car guy. I grew up staring at Mini Trucking magazine, of all things.
Yeah.
And of course, I wanted to build a Volkswagen. I wanted to build a hot rod. But you're a kid. You're 16. You're 15. You can't afford to get into it. And you know, you start looking at Mini Trucking magazines at the grocery store, and you're like, "Oh, this is cool," and all this other stuff. So I fell into it from the truck side of things, and so everything's always been custom. You know, that's pre-airbags. Everything was static dropped. And I was telling that story. My first vehicle was an 82 Ranger, and we cut the springs on it, did a really bad paint job on it, but I had to rotate the tires like every 3 months because it would wear the inside. So you had to move the front ones to the back ones to the front, row those for another 3 months, then rotate them again. And then the ones that were on the back, you'd turn them inside, so it'd wear the other inside of the tire, and then hopefully get a year out of a set of tires.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's...
So were you, like, interested in photography before the car
So my mom was a hobbyist photographer and was always like taking pictures. So when I was a kid, I always had, you know, like, used to go buy the 110 film cameras and you could just take pictures and stuff. So I got lucky that my mom, she always had a good eye, and she just always, it was funny because, like, I don't know how it was when you grew up, but we were actually broke. But, like, your mom never let you know you were broke. But a lot of the thing, too, is I grew up in Southern Illinois in a farm country, so everybody was broke. So you don't really notice because everybody was broke.
Across the board.
Broke across the board. So, like, you're just a kid living life, and, like, you don't even really think that, oh, why don't we have this and why don't we have that? But, like, today, kids have it hard because you see so much stuff and TV and everything. But luckily, I was from a family of, it's funny, all the females in our family are basically mathematicians, and then all the males are truck drivers. And so I had to make a promise to my grandfather as a kid. I wouldn't smoke and I wouldn't drive a truck. But I drove 90,000 miles last year in a Sprinter van, so I think I'm kind of fudging the line of being a truck driver.
Yeah.
I'm just not hauling
it's still
any
in your
freight.
DNA.
But it was cool. Like, when I was a kid, the thing that got me into it was he would take me on summer trips to New York City to the steel mills. Like, I'd go to Bethlehem Steel in Pennsylvania and just see good, hardworking people and learning to tarp loads and chains. So he made me work when I was a kid. So pretty lucky that I had to.
It's crazy you say that because that's something that I always thought would be fucking rad, is just like riding in a truck cross country.
Oh, yeah.
And I know a lot of guys that listen to this actually do a lot of truck driving stuff.
And truck drivers aren't the same now as they were then either, because it's funny because, like, I'll fill the Sprinter in the diesel lane sometimes, and it's like the guys driving the trucks are the ones, like, it's the whole thing. Like, when you're done filling up, you pull forward the yellow line, you go in and do what you got to do. If you're going to stay there for a certain amount of time, just go park. And it's like, dudes will just leave trucks sitting in there, they're not even filling up. And it's like, come on. I was like, I'm in a van and I know these rules. So, but it's like all that stuff has changed, you know, and everybody's just, no one's tarping their own loads anymore, and there's no owner operators, and, you know, it's all big company stuff now.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. But at least freight's still getting hauled. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So you got to do that stuff with your grandfather as well?
Yeah, my grandfather. Yeah. I really didn't have a father growing up, so he was my father figure. That and my uncle, who was really into motorcycles and stuff. And he drag raced. My mom drag raced a little bit and stuff until she got pregnant with my sister and all that stuff. So when I was a kid, we moved into a trailer. You know, I've lived in
Been there.
trailers my whole life, you know, and it's like you don't think about it when you're a kid. It's like that's just where you live. But we moved in, and so he just gives me all these 70s, 60s, 70s hot rod magazines he's had for years, like all the subscriptions and stuff, you know. So, like, I'm an 8-year-old kid, and there's just hot rod magazines. And it's like, so I'm just like cutting out pictures of drag cars and hot rods. And it's like, that's the golden age of hot rod, too, you know.
Yeah.
All the car crafts and stuff like that. And there was some, remember the magazine Heavy Metal, too?
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
was some heavy metals in there, too. And my mom, when she saw me looking through those, she's like, yeah, I'm confiscating these. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, it wouldn't. Heavy metal didn't have full nudity, but it was
it's
close.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah,
So it's provocative. I guess.
So, but when you're 9, 10, 11 years old, you
Yeah.
know, you probably shouldn't be reading heavy metal. But even the hot rod magazines were crazy back then. But, you know, I didn't realize it, but I started developing my eye then because there were so many greats from back in the day that shot for hot rod, and even into my getting into mini trucking, you know, there's guys like Wesley Allison and Randy Lorenzen and guys like Randy Lorenzen. I listened to a podcast of him talking about shooting Cadzilla the first time, and it's like talking about have all the layers and actually shooting the photos, and it wasn't Photoshop, and you had to have all these lights and got movie backdrops and stuff like that for it, and having to deal with the guys from ZZ Top. And Randy was like a legit Playboy photographer, and it's like the dude's a true artist. And it's like, but I used to, when I was a kid, I wasn't a kid, but when I started getting photography, I was like trying to deconstruct the stuff he was shooting, and like even the stuff from Michael Lichter on motorcycles, you know, like Lichter stuff from the 70s, 80s, and all the stuff of him riding around in bikes with bike guys and stuff like that. I mean, that's just legend. You know, it's like, I'd hope to think that we're that cool and
Does
kids
he have
look
a
at
book?
it. He might. I'm not sure.
If he does, I'm gonna get it. I've been wanting to buy some photography
Yeah,
books from people.
his stuff's amazing. And it's like, it's always been amazing too. It's like, was there a time when you just weren't awesome?
Yeah.
It's like we were talking about earlier about some of the motorcycle guys that they just look cool when you see them when they're on a bike.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not only do they build cool bikes, they look cool riding it. And I was like, but if I was riding that bike, I wouldn't look cool. but the cool thing is, if you look at the pictures, Lichter's, I don't want to say he's old, but you know, it's like one of those ones, and he probably hates it, I think, when I was growing up, because we're probably not that far apart in age, but like the dude sits on the back of somebody else riding a bike and shoots off the back of it, you know, and it's like, that's cool, you know.
He said he's done a whole cross country trip like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he has,
Yeah.
but the dude's a legend. And then that's like, we were talking about Brian Clock a lot because he's one of the reasons why I was here, because of shooting your bike for them, and you know, and Brian's like family, or Brian is family, and Lichter was his wedding, you know, and it's like, you try not to be giddy, because I mean, the dude is like, so you're like, oh, trying to be, hey, how's it going, you know, I was like,
yeah,
and then you're like, hey, I probably wouldn't take pictures of motorcycles if it wasn't for you, but you don't, you don't
Had to
drop
put that
that
out.
bond, you know, just put that out, so, but you know, like those guys like that, and it's funny now because we're in that whole culture now that if somebody learns something from somebody, they don't give somebody credit for it. They're like, no, I did this. But it's like, I have no problem. Like, so I started lighting stuff from day one when it wasn't cool, and magazines were telling me the stuff sucks and we don't want that and all that. But I had a few editors like Courtney Hollowell he was a hot bike and street chopper at the time, and World of Rods, and doing a bunch of stuff like car magazines. And he was like, dude, you're almost there. And he just kept telling me not to quit. And like, if even stuff wasn't quite good, he would still run it just to help me get some money and keep me going in the right direction. So he was investing in my future.
Yeah.
So, but I got into doing it for the magazines because I was going to car shows and showing cars. And so I'm just taking pictures while I'm there because I love cars.
What time frame was this when you first started kind of
shooting
your own shit?
Probably mid 90s. I started doing more stuff because I was doing some online stuff and some car show coverage, going to mini truck shows.
Dude, what would online be like uploading a photo in 96?
Oh, forever. Well, you'd mail CDs. You know, it's like, it was probably actually later than that, to be honest with you, but that's when I was shooting film then.
Yeah.
So a lot of that you would mail everything to whoever was running it.
Yeah.
But like whenever I don't want to date myself. We were talking about that earlier when you were talking about how kids, it's like, remember we used to make the joke about like people are like, imagine these people, they were born when there wasn't CDs. And now you look at kids now, you ask them, they don't even know what a CD was.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, so I guess we're the old people now. But Yeah, when I first started doing online, it's like it was all dial-up.
Yeah.
So like if you had to upload a picture to a forum or something like that, it's like I'll come back tomorrow and it'll be all pixelated, and you could do like a 1 microbyte or something like that's all the picture could be, and it had to be a certain square. And but now it's like, so I use a server now and keep all my JPEGs on it because it lets me send zip files of all my finished images, and I probably have 250, 300 photo shoots just stored on their servers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And you can go buy a 3 terabyte hard drive for $150. And so I just buy a new one every year.
They got terabyte USBs, fucking stick drives now.
Yep. Yeah, it's nuts. Yep.
And they're small.
Yeah, I use the little small square ones.
Yeah,
they're 3 terabyte. I buy 2 every year because I always double back up everything. And so I shoot, download it to this one, mirror it to this one, and then I don't erase the card until after I've edited the photos, which I usually try to edit stuff within the first few days because that way it's fresh in my mind, the colors and all that stuff. And then that way, then I wipe the card, and then I keep the JPEGs online, and I'm shooting medium format digital, so it's a 60 megapixel file. It's even the JPEG could be edited. So it's not a big thing. So
yeah, for sure.
But
so you're doing the hot rod stuff. You're checking that out. Like, did you just pick up a camera and start shooting while you were going to these shows?
Yeah, so what I was doing, I was going to shows, and I was shooting like little 110 cameras, and I went and got a good film camera, and I just started shooting at shows. And it was a Canadian magazine, of all things, kind of gave me my first real start. And one of their editors couldn't make it because they got caught in a storm coming across. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, you're going to be there to shoot the show. So I shot the show, and I was whatever version of artsy I thought I was back then.
Yeah.
I did it and tried to be cool about it and got pictures of everything, some of the pictures, and they're like, dude, you should just do more stuff for us. So they started giving me more and more events. Then they wrote me a check.
Nice.
And I was like, this is pretty cool. So at the time, I was being a service advisor and service manager for car dealerships and stuff, which I know I have a beard now and tattoos and all that stuff. But, I had that 9 to 5 go to work, and so I was doing that in the evenings and the weekends, shooting cars, shooting shows, and all that stuff. And then we moved to Houston, and my wife was getting her doctorate in biostatistics. And one day I'd been working for a family-owned dealership, and they got bought out, and I just didn't want to work for another big conglomerate again.
Yeah.
And I was getting plenty of work, and I was like, I rolled over and I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job today and become a photographer full time. And she's like, okay. And then she rolled back over and went back to sleep. So, I went from having a steady paycheck to driving all over the country trying to shoot cars and going to car shows. But it was like that Canadian magazine gave me the first start and my first paycheck at it. But guys like Courtney and Brian McCormick from Street Trucks and Mike Alexander from Mini Truckin' and all the good editors over the years, Jeff Holt at Hot Bike, Courtney when he was a Hot Bike, like all those guys just gave me work through the years while I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get to the point where you're like, oh, I don't need to learn anything else, then you might as well stop. And it's like it's always about moving forward. So it's like I'm still learning stuff today.
Yeah, there was the first magazine that I ever got in. It was there was this. I opened the magazine up and I read and I found out who the photographers were.
Yep.
And this is right when websites, everybody had their own website. So we're like 2004, right? So everybody, there wasn't really a social media other than like MySpace. So most adult professional people weren't on MySpace soliciting work. But websites were everywhere. So I found this photographer, Simon Green was his name, and he lived here in Dallas. Mm-hmm. He was a European dude, moved here, was into bikes. He knows back in the sport bike days for me, and just being around him, he's one of the guys that inspired me to like take a liking into photography.
Yeah.
And other than custom painters and builders, the only other people I've had on here is photographers. You're the third or fourth different photographer. Yep. And a lot of it is because I'm fucking fascinated by the whole thing. And like I feel like you guys are like me. Like when someone finds out that I'm a painter, I'm their friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's what's funny is like I always joke about don't use the P words on me. Don't use professional and don't use photographer. Because it's like I'm just a car guy and a bike guy and I like anything with wheels. And it's like, but so my whole mentality has always been try to make it look like the guy who built it or painted it wants it to look.
Yeah.
And it's like I've always tried hard to, so if it has flake, I want the flake to pop. If it's sits low on the ground, I want it to look low. If it's fast, I want it to look fast. And it's just hard, that's always been my thing. And what's funny is like when you're starting out, you're like complaining because all these badass cars aren't getting good photo shoots. And like we're in a golden age of great photography because a lot of stuff winds up, it's a lot of heavy editing and stuff, but stuff's cool.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is like for me, stuff has to be cool before it's perfect, and I'm like, all I care about is cool.
That's a hot rod guy.
Yeah. So I just want it to be cool. But so like everything is cool right now. So initially your facts like, man, look at this guy. He's doing cool stuff. So you're kind of like, oh, I want to do, it's like, that's my thing. I do cool stuff, but it's like, it's so great for the owners and the painters. And there's so much good talent out there now because, it's a little bit easier to come into the market without spending $1 million to do good work. And it's even that way for paint and stuff now. It's like, I painted race cars in 93, 94. And it's like, I don't think I could use a current gun, because like everything's, you got water base and like I used to use the bottom feed cups and all that stuff. And it's like, and I think we just sprayed wide open, and now it's just like, turn the pressure down a little bit and use this hardener and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, I just sprayed cars back in the day. So,
but yeah, that's so after you like started dabbling in and you started getting your first paychecks, was it basically that Canadian company that was feeding you enough business to be, or did you start to get more clients?
No, it was a little more like I started having a distinct style because I was trying to light stuff when it wasn't cool to light stuff. So like some people were like, oh, it's not just another 32 Ford sitting next to a pond. It's like, because that was always been my peeve is like, oh, you can come down here and shoot it on the grass in my farm. And I'm like, well, if it's shot on grass, I'm not going to do it. It's like, there's another photographer for you because it's like, if you're not going to drive it, like, would you drive a 32 Ford across a field? No. Well, why are you going to shoot it in a field? So it's like I've always had that mentality, and it's just personal preference. I mean, there's nothing wrong with shooting a 32 Ford next to a pond.
Well, I think that an artist that has the ability to say no to certain things, he understands himself. In a way that he can produce what you actually want from him and what he wants to give you by knowing what to say no to and what to say yes to.
Well, it's funny, as I started originally, I cared more about what people thought about my photography back in the day than I do now, which is kind of funny because it's kind of my art now and everybody knows what I do. And so everybody comes to me for what I do, or some version of what I do, or like whatever I'm going to do next. And, but like when I first started, it was like, I got to enter this contest. I got to be on this forum. And it's like, everybody's telling you suck. And it's like,
well, so you're kind of looking for validation.
Yeah, so you're looking for validation. And it's like, but you know what? I'm getting printed in magazines. And then people are hiring me for what I'm doing. But then I'm more worried about what other people who aren't doing what I'm doing, about what they say. So like
you want to be you want to be as known in the photography world as like you're known into the hot rod culture thing.
Well, see, one of the funniest things is like, it didn't dawn on me till several years later when, so Bobby Alloway won AMBR with a 3240 did. And so it was Good Guys in Columbus, and it's a shoe-in for Street Rod of the Year, and it's like, because it won AMBR. And he didn't enter it. He entered a different car. So I was like, well, why aren't you going to enter it? It's a shoe. And he goes, well, you look at it this way. The car was built to win AMBR. It won AMBR. If it comes here and doesn't win, then people are going to be like, well, maybe that car's not as good as it was. Maybe it didn't deserve to win. Maybe that car deserved to win AMBR even though it wasn't at AMBR. So then you get that little bit of doubt. So he wound up winning Street Rod of the Year with another car he built because he builds awesome stuff. But it's just one of those ones you start thinking about it. It's like, if this is what I do for a living and I enter a contest and I lose to somebody that's not their job, well, then it's like, and if people are judging me on something that's not even what I do, it's like, it doesn't really matter. So it's kind of got me over that not caring about stuff that doesn't matter. It's like, do the people who hire me and the people who pay me love my work? Yes. And do I like what I'm doing right now? Mostly. Because you know how it is, an artist is like 2 minutes after you do it, you're like, oh, I should have done this. So it got me to be a little more true to myself and to the art form, and then, all this stuff. I mean, it's nice to have validation, don't get me wrong, of course, and it's easier when you're in in your 30s, 40s, and whatever to go, yeah, I don't need validation, but it's true.
Well, if you're still doing it in
Yeah.
your 30s and 40s, that means you found some type of success with it.
Yep.
Because you've been able to eat on it. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
yeah, dude, that, trust me, my 20s, I was a fucking insecure little bitch, man. Like, I didn't know, I was, my mom said it looked good, so I walk out with confidence, and this guy said it sucks. I'm like,
Yep.
well, you know what I mean? You're just
That's
kinda
like that whole thing that when you're broke as a kid and you get some hand-me-down jeans and stuff and you think you're looking fly and you walk into school and everyone makes fun of you and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I didn't know. So now my whole life is pretty much like, I feel like my wife looks at me sometime and go, did you even look in a mirror before you walked out of the van this morning? And it's like, so it's kind of that way now. It's I'm at that next level of, not really caring,
Yeah.
but also being professional and, trying to do my best me that I can do at the same
Yeah.
time. But there's other stuff you just let it fall to the side because it doesn't really matter. I live in a van, everything I own is in it. And so it's pretty much that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I have a nice mountain bike, obviously, that Jeremy painted and from Lucky Strike. And my Sprinter's really nice. But it's like, that's what we have. We have a few cars, and my wife has a real job working for the state of Florida, but we don't have a house. She lives with her parents at their mother-in-law suite. But it's like, she lets me just try and live my dream.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping she'll decide what she wants to do when she grows up, and then we can let her do that too.
Yeah.
But for now, we're making it work.
Yeah, so at 47, you almost got it figured out.
Yeah, 47. I'm still not going to grow up. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Well, that's what's cool about this culture, that from the hot rod to the motorcycle, is that when done, like you're doing it, it's like you can literally live a whole life and say, like, you know what, man, I feel like I never had to grow up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And when you're an artist like yourself and Jeremy and all these other people that, I lost where I was going with that, but it sounded good going into it.
Well, it's the whole thing, though. It's like when you find that thing you were born to do, it
Yeah.
just clicks. It's like, I can honestly tell you this is what I was born to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I quit school to go work for a race team in the early 90s. So I've been a race car mechanic. I've been a service advisor for dealerships, and I've had various jobs and all that stuff through my whole life. And then for the last 20, 25 years, I've taken pictures, and it's like, this is what I was born to do, But what was funny is everything that I screwed up in the past led me to be who I am now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, it's that whole thing. Could you do it all over again? You're like, no. Yeah, it'd be cool if I could start being a photographer when I was 7,
Yeah.
but it's everything I learned to get to here. It was funny because I was joking with you earlier. I told you if I wrote an autobiography, I was the worst employee ever.
Yeah.
So like I had a lot of opportunities, and it's all about, knocking on the door and people giving me work and stuff like that and giving me a shot. And I learned a lot of stuff from those people, but I guarantee when they fired me, they didn't realize, they're like, this kid won't learn nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like the stuff they taught me, I learned it when it dawned on me when I was 30.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't dawn on me when I'm 21.
Yeah, and that's, like we were talking about there, and I said that's pretty much my brother. But, like, honestly, just like you said, you had to do it your way to get where you're at now,
Yep.
But, I didn't really have someone like me to help me growing up.
Yep.
My dad was kind of around, but not really and shit. So, fuck, man, like it was just hard to find guidance. So I actually found guidance through guys like I was telling you earlier, like Other Side Customs. Like when I worked with Gary, I looked up to that motherfucker like he was my dad. So, my mannerisms as a kid, like in my early 20s, like I was so impressionable by him. I acted like this dude. This dude had accomplished himself as a painter, as all these books and magazines, all these things he's done. And here I am, just a prepper, like walking around with the same kind of cocky attitude.
We had a joke. I have a buddy who's he builds cars, and he builds a really badass hot rod, but he works for Tony Stewart. And we were having dinner last year in Concord when I stopped to visit him. And I go in there, and, we're sitting there, and you see all the old guys from the race shops in there eating lunch. And then, you're at the local little watering hole with all the teenage girls working in there and all that stuff. And you see all the teenage boys that basically sweep the floor at the shop. They come in like they're Tony Stewart, chest post. They have every piece of Stewart Haas racing gear on, everything's, their hair's perfect. And all the old guys are like, I just want to eat so I can go back to work and I can go home. But the kid, they're all like, hey, look at me. And I was like, I just remember being that guy. And it's just funny. It's like, it's funny when it transitions from hey, look at me to hey, it's all about work, you know. And it's like, so now it's like I have a hard time with people like you're trying to, it's like, oh, I'm so thrilled that you're shooting my bike and all this other stuff, but it's like, I'm thrilled to be shooting your bike.
Yeah.
You're like, even though you say it's just a beater and all this stuff, I'm like, you ride that thing, and it's got a beautiful paint job on it. You did a killer job on it.
Thank you.
And it's got that nice Clockworks windshield on it, of course, too. And but you know,
shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug. No, that's shameful plug.
You were gonna say something about Brian too, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. So I was going to throw in, I was like, so everybody that doesn't know Brian that listened to the last podcast, I have to tell you the truth about him. It's, you know how nice and everything he seems on that last podcast? Well, he's even nicer in person. So no matter what, it's like, it's hard to believe because, you know, we were talking about that earlier. I know this podcast is going to be all over the place, by the way, there's just certain groups of people that I've been lucky enough to meet and hang out with, like Brian and Jesse Greening from Greening Auto Company, Charlie Hutton, Jeremy from Lucky Strike. Well, he kind of sloughs off a lot, but you know, just there's so many good guys in the industry, Bobby Alloway, and it's like when you leave, you want to work harder. Yeah, it's like, it's funny because we were talking about, I drove 90,000 miles last year. I'm in this almost 80 this year, and I'm looking at Brian's Instagram page. He's here, he's there, he's doing this, and I'm like, damn, I need to work harder. Yeah, you know, and it's just like, so it's cool to be able to call those guys my friends and family and stuff like that. And it's like, but everything I do is about those guys. Yeah, like when I shoot somebody's car, I'm like, I'm there for them. It's like, it's not about me, because you'll run into guys, you'll go into a photographer's house and he has a picture of all of his covers on the wall, and like everybody goes, where's all your covers at? And I'm like, well, they're hanging in the shop. It's like, because that's the guy who deserves the credit. Like, I didn't shoot a cover, they built a cover car, or they built a cover motorcycle.
Well, I've always thought that, like, to be a photographer, you really gotta, like, have it in you to, like, not want yourself to be the center of attention sometimes. Right. And you know, when you do art, it kind of gets weird because your art becomes you. Yeah. But
well, photography's tough too, because it's one of those ones too that, like, you'd like someone to pat you on the back, but then everybody's got a sister that takes pictures. Yeah. Or like, oh, my cousin takes pictures. And
my
then
baby mama takes pictures.
And then also too, you get people that go, well, photography's not really art, you know. And then sometimes people will say stuff like that to me. Then I'll see my stuff later and like, oh, I didn't know you were a photographer. You know, it's like, I just thought you took pictures of cars. And basically, I do just take pictures of cars, so there's really no magic in it. But it's like, there is a difference, you know, than just take. But I do think that everybody should take pictures, because everybody thinks everything different. Just like you were taking pictures behind the scenes, and we're talking about you taking pictures of your helmets and stuff. It's like, everybody has their own world. And it's like, it's cool if you show it, you know. I mean, and that's what's the cool thing with photography and video as well too. Yeah. You know, we're talking about doing video, and I'm trying to work on a YouTube channel, and it's like, it's hard enough to keep up on stills, and now I'm trying to work on video and stuff. So I've done a few things for like PPG and stuff like that, but excuse me. And but I'm working on it. So hopefully in the future I'll have some better videos on YouTube and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like I said, I'm buying all this shit. I'm spending every day watching these all these different people that do different stuff to try to learn it, try to understand. I bought today I actually bought a downloadable course on Premiere Pro. Yep. Just to try to learn all the program. I'm pretty savvy when it comes to programs. Yep. Just from doing vinyl graphics and all the shit I've had to do over the years to create, these paint jobs. So I can work my way around stuff. And but like editing video, it's like when you edit it, then you realize, oh, I should have shot it this way. Yep. And then it goes like this back and forth thing where you're like, okay, editing is teaching me how to shoot the video that I want. Right. And you know what I mean? So there's just...
Yeah, because you can watch a video and go, oh, my videos look like that. Yeah. But then you don't really know what goes into that video until you try and shoot that video. Exactly. Because it still comes down, because everything's shot on digital SLRs now and mirrorless cameras, and you want that low f-stop, with everything blurred out in the background, but it's like, if you don't know how to operate a camera, you're like, how do I do this? And there's and you can Google anything.
Dude, Pinterest. You can learn that shit on Pinterest. Yeah. But the eye for photography, and I think that, like,
well, that's one thing you can't teach.
Yeah. Same thing when it comes when people ask me about how to, I can teach you the techniques of to do these paint jobs, and you can do it. Like this isn't something I was born with. This is a skill that can be learned. Now, the eye for the design, that I don't know how to show you that. That's the part of it
that's the thing too on people actually copying your style.
Yeah.
Is like they can only steal what you've done.
Yeah.
They can't steal what you're going to do.
And I tell that to a lot of painters.
So it took me a while to get that in my head, because I used to be like, oh, this guy went and bought lights and he's copying my style and trying to sell to my customers and all this other stuff. And it's like, but all he can do is do what you've done.
He's waiting on the next thing for you to do for him to be valid again. And that's, like, man, I'm guilty of being influenced by people when I was younger, and really wanting to be able to captivate their style. And it, did I do it for customers at the time? Yeah, but I mean, my customers back in the 2000s, the aughts, I think is what they call it. Like, I mean, we're talking like $1,000 paint jobs at most. You know what I mean? It ain't like I was getting rich off the shit. But the older I got, then I didn't want to take some like Jeremy's like tiki style and do it on something, because it's not mine, it's Jeremy's, you know what I mean? And so, but I had to be influenced by people, and I had to try to get their style down before I could create my style. Right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's one of those ones too, is because we talked about this earlier too, and like, it's funny because everybody collabs now.
Yeah.
It's like brands collab, other photographers, videographers. There'll be like an 8-man crew on a photo shoot now, and like 8 guys are shooting this thing, and then they all get together and work on it. And when we started, it was all like dog eat dog, and it was like, and there was less of us.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part. There's more of them now, or more of us now, and we all get along better than we ever have.
Yeah, and I think it's because we also know that this is, I think that the world got bigger, and so we felt like less threatened by everybody.
Well, I had a photographer when I first started. I went up to him, I was like, hey, I really like your style and all this other stuff. And I was like, you got any pointers and stuff like that? He goes, gotta learn it on your own. It's like he basically told me, no pointers, no nothing. And it's like, so I've been pretty good at like just trying to help people. And it's like, at first I was like, I would go in my head, I was like, well, is this guy going to steal work from me and stuff like that? Now it's just like, I'm an open book, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was even trying to give you pointers, and you're like, I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's like, I was telling you that there's so many great kids out there now doing it that are just like sponges. And I got to hang out with a lot of the SEMA Battle of the Builder kids and are in their 20s. I mean, so I guess they are kids this year at SEMA. And it's like, I met with this one kid from Larson. I think it's Larson Motorsports out of New York, and he built that Cuda with the Viper motor in it. And all I could think about was me and my 82 Ranger back in the day. And it's like, but the kid knew every nut and bolt on that thing, every bit of the wiring. It's like, it wasn't fake. His dad didn't build it and give it to him. So
it's cool that he has a family that can support it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of us, like we agreed earlier, across the board, we were broke. A lot of us had to start off in that 82 Ranger. I started it off in a fucking. My first bike was a $4,000 Kawasaki that I sold my only running car to buy.
Well, that's the thing is though, and it still works this way now, but people don't realize it, especially kids, is if you see a shop and you want to work at that shop, like back in the day, it was like, hey, I'll come sweep the floors for free. Like when I started working for the race shop for almost a whole year, I swept the floor for free, went to races on the weekend with them, and then worked at Radio Shack at night in the mall. And then lived in an apartment or slept on one of the guys from the race shop's floor. But still now, I go into hot rod shops and bike shops, and they're like, dude, I wish a kid would come in here and want to sweep my floor. I'd teach him whatever he wants to know. But nobody's knocking on those doors. They all want instant gratification. They're like, oh no, I want to build a Riddler car now. It's like they don't want to learn that. But that's like if you look at the Troy Trepaniers and the Alloways and stuff, as you look at the guys who are in their 30s and 40s who build cars that start out working for those guys. It's like it's kind of just fingers out on these great builders that have come out of these great shops. So they've went and worked for shops for 3 or 4 years, learned a trade, or like if they were already good at making metal, they learned how in their brain how to put a whole car together. And so then they wind up winning Riddlers in the future, or winning Donnie Smith awards on bikes and stuff like that. But it's cool to see that there's guys, they're 30s, 40s now, that they were 18, 19-year-old kids working for Boyd or working for Troy or working for Foose, and it's people got to realize that's how you start. You know, you start at the bottom, you work your way up. And
well, you know, like I don't know how it was, you know, 15 to 20 years ago, but with all the vocational schools, MMIs, the UTIs, that's a urinary tract. No.
Yeah, you're changing.
Is it
Tractor
UTI?
trailer infection?
But no, there's all these things, and you know, these guys, which I think those places are good to have for sure.
They are good, but they're also too is we've gotten into this like puppy mill version of getting people out of school.
Yeah,
so
because it's a
lot of the
business.
kids that go in, you know, they see, you know, a person that like they'll use as their flagship person that graduated from the school. But a lot of times that person already knew how to weld when they went to school, or their dad owned a race team and they built race cars, or their dad had a garage and they worked. So when they come in, they're pretty much they're like a diamond that needs to be polished.
I wonder if
you
they
know?
can start doing scholarships for badasses.
Yeah. Well, I think they kind of do when they see
I got
someone
a full
coming.
ride to UTI.
I got a full ride to UTI. But you know what's cool is those schools are out there.
Yeah.
And it's like it's still a good thing because there's one in South Dakota. There was a truck that was up for Truck of the Year that won at the Loveland, Colorado Good Guys event. And it was a younger guy in his 20s, and his dad, they actually have the Hot Rod Institute in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Nice.
And so I go there, and like people actually work on their own projects in school.
That's cool.
So it's a lot of it too, you know, a lot of the schools cater to, you know, like guys in manufacturing. Some people lost their job or they want to try a different job, but there is a lot of kids going into it too. But a lot of times too is people don't know where to go. Like back in the day, like we would stand around and look at the neighbor who was worked on a Camaro in his garage, and we'd just just stand on the corner and watch. And he'd finally be like, "Hand me a wrench," you know. And you're like, "All right," and that's how you got into it. And there's just not a lot of, you know, people aren't working on their cars in their driveway in San Francisco. You know, I mean,
I think that like. For instance, like with a lot of people now, like the kid that was here earlier at Saxon, he's 24, 25-ish, and he wants to learn this shit, but he's also at a point in his life where he can't afford to come work for free. So I'm trying to help him out, but a lot of people they go to school, they pay this money, and then when they get out, they're kind of conditioned from these schools to think that they're already valuable. And so the thing is that if they was to go to the school to get that stuff, but then be willing to come work in a shop like this for fractions of the dollar, you're not going to come here and pay off your loans.
Yeah, you're not going to come here and make $60,000 a year.
Yeah, it ain't happening, dude. Like you have
to.
to
Look at a doctor.
Yeah.
A doctor goes to school for that long, and then they intern at a hospital just doing shifts and basically being a peon and doing bedpans and, you know, following a doctor around. It's like, what's the difference in if you're going to work and build cars and motorcycles? Yeah. They're like, that's the way it's supposed to work.
Well, and the other thing is, it's like, you know, we talked about the instant gratification thing, and you know, I'm probably guilty of this because I wasn't aware of this growing up in my 20s because I've kind of always worked for myself in a sense, but now that I'm a little bit more wise in my 30s, it's like everything is about just investing in yourself. Everything, every day, like that you're sitting on your ass when there is a shop that you could be hanging out in, at least to take the trash out or sweep the floor or whatever the case may be. Like it's a chance that you can spend this time learning. It's the same thing we're talking about listening to the radio versus listening to a podcast.
Yeah, that's like me. It's like I want to watch Netflix and I want to watch Adult Swim on my iPad. But you know what? There's tutorials on how to make me better at what I do.
Exactly.
And it's like the day I stop trying to get better at what I do and being the best me I can be, then I might as well just get a real job. Yeah. You know, I mean, because then
that way you can come home and clock out at 4 o'clock and then go watch.
And then my wife would actually see me, and she'd probably divorce me because she'd actually see me on a daily basis.
She'd realize that this was a bad idea.
But we always joke about that. I go home I've been in Florida 3 days this year, and like she comes and hangs out with me, but the most she hangs out's 2 weeks. So I think that's the limit of when you can hang out with me is 2 weeks, and then you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to go home.
It's time to go back.
Yeah, I think that was my longest relationship before my wife too, was 2 weeks.
So so basically, like the late 90s, is that whenever you're able to go off on your own?
So it hasn't been that long. It probably is longer now. It's probably been 10, 12 years. Okay. Probably that we started jokingly it's not stock photography because, you know, just the cheesy photography you buy for like your company and put on your website's called stock photography. Yeah. And then I shoot vehicles that are not stock most of the time. So we just kind of play on the words. Yeah. So we've had that for a while, and I was doing a lot of it on weekends and evenings. And my 64 Corvair van that I drove all over the country, 170,000 miles in 4 years. So like I started in Florida with my wife, and she bought that for me for my birthday. It's been a billion years ago, seems like.
Damn, my wife buys me a Dixon flannel for my birthday. Like, you get a van?
We test drove it 7 miles and drove it home 400, and it was a Corvair van. I mean, how much is it worth? I mean, brand new, they were $3,000, and I think they hold their value if they're still in mint condition. And but she always jokes. She's like, if I knew that was going to keep you away from me, I'd never bought it for you. And I was like, but she knows I just have this wanderlust where I just want to go see the country and see stuff. And I go home for like 2 days, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm just like, I just can't sit here on the couch.
Yeah.
I got to go do something. I got to,
You know what? There's something about like when you're traveling a lot. Like I've been on some solo trips, and pulling into a gas station, maybe in a town like that's operating.
Yep.
It's a Monday or Tuesday or whatever, and it's just like you kind of see the world through like a filter's pulled back.
Well, it's funny because like those people have never left that town.
Some of them haven't.
I mean, some have, but like there's people that grew up there that never left. Like they may have went to the next town over, or they went and visited somebody in California and came back, and that was their big trip, and then they just worked there the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And it's just like there's so much. Like my wife always wants to go overseas. And I'm like, but have you seen this? And she's like, no. I was like, well, let's go here.
Yeah.
So it's like I've been trying. It was funny because until we got married, her whole life she'd never seen snow, and her first snow was Houston, Texas.
Wow.
But then
that's rare.
So when PPG's big truck was getting painted in February in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I took her up there, and the lake was froze all the way to Canada. And we walked out on the lake, and the waves are frozen and all that stuff. And it's like, she's like, yeah, I'm done with winter. I don't ever need to see this again. So, but there's us like squirrel going off. I don't even know what we're talking about now.
Well, you know what? We've been drinking all this tea. I got to piss.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Cool. I'm one of those dudes, right? All right. Can't talk about that.
Yeah, we can't talk about that. Jeez. So it was funny is you can't see it on this podcast, but we were talking about how he wanted something I shot on his wall, and I look up, and there's actually a magazine cover of 2 bikes he painted that I actually shot, and I didn't know he painted them, so it's pretty funny. But it led into another story that involved a naked stripper, and we won't go into that. So, it was all professional for a motorcycle shoot, though.
Exactly.
I honestly promise. I actually had to tell someone to put clothes. I actually had to tell someone to put clothes on at a photo shoot. And so
it's always fun. I was going to ask you, like, have you done much model photography?
I used to do a lot because of shooting for like old school rods and CK Deluxe, like everything, every cover they want to model. And we went through that deal where like every car magazine wanted a girl, and then all of a sudden no girls. So
then Instagram came along.
Right before Instagram, like Hot Bike and Street Chopper and all those guys were like, all right, girls in every picture from now on. Like if it's going to be on the cover, it's got to have a girl. And I'm like, all right. So we went back to shooting girls again.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny is when I was back in those days when you were talking about earlier about being a professional photographer and doing it for money and not for your craft, is I shot a few weddings and stuff like that. And I had one of those ones where I had the bride that was doing the whole, at this point in the wedding, I'm going to look at my dad with a tear in my eye. And I was like, that was like, no more weddings. Yeah. It was like, I'm not the photographer for you. But now I shoot, like I shot Brian Clark's wedding, and I do it for friends, and that's all I do it for.
Did he get married like at the beach somewhere?
No, he got married in Deadwood, South Dakota.
Oh, he did?
So funny story. This is how awesome my wife is my wife flew into, I'm trying to think where she met me at. Maybe she flew into Dallas or Houston or something. Somewhere warm.
Yeah. She
flew in right before Christmas Eve. And then this is how I don't see holidays anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like every day is a work day. Because what's funny is when people don't realize when you work for yourself, they'll see a picture of me riding mountain bikes or me, it's the Grand Canyon. But it's like I'm on my way to work.
Yeah.
It's like I'll have a 800 to 1,000 mile driving day is nothing to me, because I have to get places to work. And the quicker I can get there, the quicker I can work, quicker I can get paid. And, but so Brian goes, hey, I want you to shoot my wedding and all this other stuff. And of course, Michael Lichter's there when I get there. And I'm like, wait, Lichter's here. Why do you need me to shoot?
Yeah.
You know,
I want your lighting techniques.
because Lichter's smart. Well, Lichter's not shooting weddings, and but Brian and Vanessa are great. So I shot their wedding, but it was in Deadwood, South Dakota. So me and the wife, we spent Christmas Eve morning Christmas morning, we woke up in Omaha, Nebraska, and my wife only goes on road trips for good food. And so we found a deli in Omaha that was open Christmas morning.
Yeah.
So we went to this Jewish deli and had a great deli sandwich and all this stuff for breakfast. Then we drove to Rockwell City, Iowa, which is pretty north in Iowa, and shot at Lakeside Rods, Roger Berman's shop, for Good Guys on Christmas Day, because I don't think he really cares about Christmas either. He's Roger, and he's in Iowa, so what are you going to do? And so we finished shooting there, and we start looking at the weather, and it's like, oh, it's going to start snowing in Rapid City first thing in like midnight. And it's like, well, we can get to Rapid City by midnight. No, well, it's going to start snowing in Mitchell, because you have to go through Mitchell to head toward Rapid City.
Yeah.
So they were calling for 6 or 8 inches of snow in Mitchell overnight. We were originally just going to stay in Mitchell and ride up with those guys.
Yeah.
And so my wife has this brilliant idea. It's like, well, you don't mind driving, so we'll just drive from Rockwell City to Rapid City at least. So we just deadhead through. Excuse me. And we get to Sioux Falls or Sioux City, one of those towns, and we're trying to find some dinner. Of course, nothing's open.
Yeah.
Luckily, we stopped to go to this convenience store just to get chips or something, and luckily Domino's was open. That was like the best Domino's ever, because it's the only thing we ate that day. But then we did head all the way to South Dakota.
That's a track right there from Sioux City.
Yeah,
so.
It's all the way across. We made it all the way across. Got there by the time we got to the hotel, there was probably a half an inch on the ground. So we stayed at the Holiday Inn there. I woke up next morning, it was like 3 or 4 inches on the ground, and then drove the rest of the way to Deadwood. But then we got to the day after Christmas in Deadwood, it snowed all day. So it was like 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches of snow on the ground in Deadwood. And Deadwood's a beautiful city when it's not bike part of the city. So it was pretty cool, and it was a pretty good trip for us. And it was my wife had never been to Deadwood and never really done any much South Dakota stuff. So it's like there's still so many cool places to go see. And to see Deadwood when there's snow, because I didn't even realize they do so much snowmobile stuff up there in the winter.
Yeah.
And it's like when
Ski
we're going
lodges and all that shit.
because we went to this little property to shoot like their portrait parts, and it's just like a foot of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful, and there's creek running through, and then we go by, there's like just tons of people riding snowmobiles out there.
That fucking town, man. Like the first time I ever came through there, like I'm a history buff.
Yep.
Like not like I don't know a lot of history, but when it presents itself, I'm glued to it. You know what I mean? And just that fucking town is like when you roll through it, you feel like you're back there.
Yep. And it makes you want to watch that HBO show Deadwood as soon as you see it. It's like, oh, I need to learn it. And there's still like there's cool stuff hanging there. Like this is where Wild Bill was shot and all this stuff. It's like that stuff's still there.
You can also go up to the top of the hill where he's buried. And with, I think Calamity Jane is there too.
Yeah, they also have what was crazy is it's cool to see that town get to that level, because everybody says how bad that town was, like in the 80s and 70s. Like it was like, I think the oldest brothel in America was still open there, like in the 70s or 80s. Yeah, probably not, because there's not much around Deadwood, so I'm sure the talent pool wasn't that great.
They weren't doing the Sturgis thing and pulling.
But it's cool when you get to see these small towns. Like where the buildings are still there.
Yeah.
Like people haven't tore the buildings down. That's what makes my photography great. It's all the backgrounds. And we always joke about how do I find all these cool locations. Like I'm not afraid of getting lost. It's like I'll just drive. It was funny, like we shot your bike in town tonight, and you pulled over to ask me about this one spot, and I'm like, hey, isn't there a feed mill here?
Yeah.
I think I've shot here before. So we went to the feed mill where I shot before.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of funny is like, if I go back to Florida, I'll get lost without using Google Maps, but I can go to the middle of nowhere in Iowa, and I know every street like the back of my hand, because I've been there and I've done stuff there. Like if I go to where Alloway's shop is in Alcoa, Tennessee, which is outside of Knoxville, I don't have to pull out Google Maps. I don't have to do anything. Yeah. I know where everything. I know where the restaurants are. I know where the back roads are. I know where the airport's at. I know where all that stuff is from just driving around looking for spots.
I'm the same way. Like I know my way around. I'm pretty good with maps, but the only time I have to pull out Google Maps is when I'm in a major city and I'm trying to figure, okay, does this highway connect faster, blah, blah, blah.
What was funny was when I was a kid is like my grandfather was always trying to keep me occupied, because as you can tell how much I talk, that I'm just one of those kids that's like, hey, 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 hey. So he would just hand me a map and go, route me a map. Which way should we go? We're going here. So I'd sit there and just go through the map and figure it out, and he'd show me how to read maps and stuff. And it's like, I bet you could seriously stump some kids. And I was like, hey, read this map.
Dude, I grew up, like, my mom drove a truck around, like a hot shot kind of thing before it was really a hot shot.
Yep.
And she had map scopes, right? Those, every city had their little map scope, and you flip it. I used to just look at it.
Yep.
It was fascinating to me to kind of have a sense of, like, where I'm at.
Remember how amazing MapQuest was?
Dude.
Like, you could just print out the directions.
So
you still had to follow directions.
This is the problem with maps. Big pet peeve. I cannot stand when someone can't look at a map and understand I know where you're at, where you're going. And if you have to be the guy that prints out the words, turn right at this street. I'm like, dude, are you seriously that, like, far disconnected from
it was funny, too, is, like, I remember being a kid and my grandfather giving another truck driver directions. Like, he really wouldn't know the street number.
Yeah.
Because he'd been there so many times, he just went there and turned right.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, he knew all the roads. He knew where he was going. He never had to look at it. I never saw him with a map out. And it's just crazy that you could, like, the stuff people would, like, no one got lost back in the day, really. And if you did, it's my wife laughs at me now because, like, east, west, the sun, and it's like, so if you get lost in a town's usually on grids.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know if I go up here, I make this circle. And it's like, it just totally blows her mind. And it's like, she's got a doctorate in math. But it's like, and when it comes to geography, like, I could literally, the only thing I could beat her in a contest is if you set down a map of the U.S. and then questioned her what state was what, I could probably beat her on that.
Well, a lot of people don't know about the highways, like the
evens and odds.
Evens and odds. So.
Yeah, I told her that, and she goes, that's not true. And I'm like, no, it is.
Here's
but
a
she
map.
never traveled.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't make, it's just, you learn certain stuff. It's like, I still count on my fingers, and she does math with letters in it, and it's like, I couldn't get numbers down, so don't start throwing numbers into it.
I built these stairs right here, so they should last at least a couple more weeks.
Yep.
And I had to use the Pythagorean theorem to do this. And so, like, I Googled this shit and I YouTubed it to learn how to make stairs. And I wanted to do this shit myself, right? And, my grandfather was a really good carpenter. He built a lot of things in his house, and I kind of want to take after him in some aspects of that. So I wanted to do this shit myself, and I'm 37, and for the first time in my adult years, I have used algebra.
Nice.
So
I didn't use algebra when I was learning algebra.
I didn't even, like, all this fucking time.
I really think I went to private school my whole life, which is pretty funny, which also got me to where I'm at, was the funny story on that is I remember I went to private school, like a Southern Baptist private school in New York, and so we never swore. I went to a school where, like, girls and guys didn't date, weren't in the same classroom, all this other stuff. And then I go to work for a race shop in New York, and I work for a race shop in North Carolina, a NASCAR shop, and there's these two old fabricators from New York, and they put me in there working, like, hauling stuff for them and everything. So my first time home, I'm, like, dropping F-bombs and everything, because they're, like, old Navy guys, you know, and it's just like, you hear the record, and it's like, so it's pretty funny. There is definitely an art in speaking with a blue tongue. And it's just like those guys definitely had it. So
that is true.
Yeah.
I got friends that are in careers that are very they have to speak a lot more proper.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to learn that just doing these podcasts and shit. But
I can't believe that I don't drop more F-bombs and stuff like that than what I do. And it's like, I don't know if it's because of all those years of private school.
Yeah.
And it's like, my brain's still like, well, you don't need those words. Yeah. And it's like, and even when people, like, you say dumb, like, call someone a duty head or something sometimes, it's like, wait, what? Just call him an asshole.
Well, yes, we were talking about that earlier, about how I grew up in shops where when you did something stupid, you got called something gay.
Yeah.
Other words for gay. Yep. Gay boy was a big one. Yep. What's up, gay boy? Like, it was just the thing that you did in, like, shops. It was never like a derogatory thing.
Yep.
But, I was looking at, I've been doing all this research for all this, like, video shit, and I'm like, if I'm going to put all this type of shit on YouTube, which this podcast is on YouTube, but it's like, my channel's not big enough for them to even take a look at it to, I'm not monetizing in any kind of way. But if it does get to a point where it is, the cussing that I do and the F, not the fuck, but the other F and shit, like, that stuff will get me
which is funny because that's gotten that way. But do we really need it?
No.
But we grew up with it, so it's like, it's like because I say it, I don't mean nothing by it. You know? I mean, it's one of those.
Well,
things.
like I want. You see, like I watch a lot of Joe Rogan. That's kind of where I get my news from, more or less. But
it's just words.
Yeah, you see this like world that's changing around us, and it just trickles into our world. Trickles in.
We're officially hitting that area. We're like, here's two old guys having a podcast talking about what's wrong with this world now.
Yeah. So like the way the outside world is and all this shit that goes on, that like I've always joked about it, but like I don't know anybody that in my world of business, friendships, or anything that are questioning their gender right now.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, the problem is we're in this whole thing is like we want heroes, but then we also want our heroes to fail. That's the hard part. So it's like you build people up, then you want them to fail, and then you want to build them back up again, then you want them to fail, and it's like there's still something to say. It's like just keep your head down, working, and just do what you do. And it's like that's what I've always tried to do, and but things are changing. It's like I have a huge following on Instagram. I'm like I have no idea how I got it, other than getting to hang out with cool people and take pictures of their cars and their bikes and stuff like that.
Well, for one, you're a photographer, so like that platform is built on making guys like you great.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about like when Instagram started, like photography became a thing that everybody wanted to do, right? And then
it made everybody a photographer.
Tattoo artists became the most famous people in the world.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So I don't know if you've ever seen Jeremy from Lucky Strike's wife's work.
Yeah.
Like she's amazing. Like she just posted a piece the other day of the Addams Family shit on somebody's back, and I just wrote, "Dude." It's like, what else can I say? But like,
that's the best adjective in the world.
Yeah, she's I like the talent between those two people.
Yeah,
and it's like I was telling you, like I was making the joke earlier about Jeremy wanting me to work harder, and like Jeremy never seems like he works, but it's like then he brings something out, and I'm like, just print this out. I mean, there's no way you do.
We
this.
need more video of Jeremy actually working.
Yeah,
I don't. Sure he doesn't have like a little midget.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
That he brings out to do the work.
I think he has child labor. I think child labor is okay. He has an 8-year-old. But yeah, it's like he did my bike, Dirt Reynolds, the one that we had at the Well, it was Dirt Diggler, and we thought Dirt Diggler was probably not the proper thing to hang in the PPG booth at SEMA.
I was actually texting Jeremy last night because we've been talking about doing a helmet trade. For 2 years now. And
it'll take him 2 years to do you one. So after you give him one, but
that's fine. But
because Tristan that works for Troy Lee, I think he's probably still wanting to know where his helmet is. but when he does stuff, it's special.
Yeah.
So it's
that's the thing I'm trying to promote is that like, I guess we were kind of talking about it, and how I was telling you how I really want this photo that you took. I want it. Like I want it to say. It's because like, and I had this podcast with the guy Tim O'Keefe I was telling you about, and we started talking about pictures and how there's so many of them now, and we all take them, and I have 100 shots of the same thing, and it doesn't mean as much to me as it once did to get your picture taken. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. All the stuff that I'm famous for is all stuff that I've done that would be easy to do now, but it was hard when I did it then.
Yeah.
So it's like Brian wants to use for the Jesse Combs Foundation, my girl in a soapbox derby car that I took 15 years ago. And that picture was funny because when I did it, it's all long exposure. I mounted the camera to the soapbox derby car. And the girl's just got this really intense face. And then her dad's in a 32 Ford truck next to her, and his wife is pushing it, trying to stay pace with us. So basically, it's just a long exposure rolling shot and the car stays in focus because it's mounted to the what's rolling.
Yeah.
And so it's one of my iconic pictures. I call it the hot rod race, and it was all just to have this special photo between my buddy Jake and his daughter Kylie. And I just shot her senior pictures 2 years ago, and she was like 8 when I took this picture. So it's like, thanks. It's like, it's funny because like you don't have kids because you don't want to feel old, but then like all your friends have kids, and then they're like, wait, your kid's going to college? I was like, weren't they throwing up on your shoulder 3 months ago?
Yeah.
So Brian wants to use that photo, and that photo is actually pretty special to me because it was also that website Jalopnik there was a whole thread about it being fake, like it was all Photoshop, and it's like Photoshop even really wasn't like a super thing then.
Yeah.
And like I got all these arguments of like, I'm an engineer and this photo is not possible because of this, and I'm like, I don't know what that has to do with anything with you being an engineer. I was like, I don't know if you build cameras.
Yeah.
But it's like, I use this lens, this camera, this is how I did it, and it's real, and then it's like, then everybody wants to like troll me on that post after that. And it was like, I kind of learned my lesson of just like, yeah, I don't need to be on forums, and I don't need to be on, like I got added to, it was funny, I got added to an automotive forum the other day, and I have this picture of Kyle Hicks from Hicks Designs, the leather guy from Oklahoma.
Badass.
And yeah, he's amazing. Like, he does killer bags and stuff like that now. He doesn't even mess with car and bike interiors anymore, I don't think. But he used to do some killer bike seats for like brass balls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But so he's holding a shotgun standing in this old house, and there's a T-bucket that he did a leather roof on out front. This picture's like 15 years old. Mm-hmm. So I get talked into joining this professional automotive photographers group, and it's all, so I go in, it's a lot of young guys and stuff like this. So they started this thread on like, hey, what got you into automotive photography? And someone posted this picture, and it's like, it really meant a lot to me. And I did the whole thing in one shot. There was no Photoshop in it. I mounted a flash in the house on him. There's 2 flashes outside. I had to take like 100 shots just to get all 3 to flash at one time. So I had one good picture out of the whole thing. And so the posts on there, and the first comment's like, I find that guy standing in the building really distracting. And I'm just like, I get ready to start writing this big 3-page dissertation about, hey, fuck you, that whole thing. And then I look, the dude's 23. It's like, I took the picture 15 years ago. Like, you probably couldn't hold a camera when I took this photo, and it's like, it wasn't worth it, so I just left the group.
You know what, that point, that brings me to something else we were kind of talking about earlier, is like this need for this younger generation to have a voice.
Yep.
Without, like you're 23.
Yep.
And you're jumping into a trade, an art trade.
Yep.
That you need to shut the fuck up for at least another 10 years before you start talking about it.
I don't mind them having the voice, but the voice should be more, even, you don't want to talk politics, but it's like the whole thing is everybody's like, this is what's wrong. I'm like, all right, well, how are we going to fix it? Well, no one will tell you how to fix it.
No, it's just
they'll just tell you you're wrong. And it's like, well, I wanted this picture of him that was cool. And the dude was a lineman for like Oklahoma State. So have you ever met Kyle? Kyle's like 6'6", like 5 billion pounds.
I think I've been in the same room with him once.
Yeah, like one of his hands is bigger than my head.
Yeah.
And super great guy. And if you ever get a chance to meet him or see his leather work,
I had planned on having him on the podcast.
Yeah. His new shop. If you go to Oklahoma City, so you can knock out Charles Armstrong, who's another one of my heroes. He's the best, one of my best friends that I never get to see. So when you wind up being friends with me, you never get to see me.
Yeah.
So you'll hear me call you a friend, and I'm like, I ain't seen that dude in 2 years. So that's how. So the better friends we become, the less you'll see me, unless we run in the same circles and run into each other at shows or bike events or something like that. So I'll always see you at SEMA.
This is the first podcast I've done since SEMA.
Nice.
I was like worried about like, man, I haven't turned these mics on in almost a month now.
Well, I feel bad because you asked me 18 months ago, was it? Or
I don't know. It was long. It was like when we first started.
Yeah, so when you first started, and you told me, you're like, I'm glad you told me no because I've gotten way better. And but I feel bad because I never listened to your podcast.
Well, that's fine. Most people don't.
But I'm a huge fan of your work.
Yeah.
It's like that's who I really like. It's like I started out, excuse me a second. I started out liking photographers and looking at photographers' work, but it all came down to like you like certain people's car builds, and my whole thing is painters and metal flake and all this other stuff. And like we had the whole story is like I didn't get into metal flake until 1990, 1991, 92, something like that. Gary Howard from Austin, who just recently passed away, one of the greats in the automotive customization world, built Jimmy Vaughn's Riviera, and it was on the cover of Car Stereo Review. And I saw it, and it's like someone hit me in the head with a brick, and it's like, this is where it's at. It's like a 60s Rivy with gold flake, wires, and white tuck and roll interior, and it's like, then I went down the rabbit hole of Larry Watson and Gene Winfield, and it's all like, and what's crazy is that whole, this is what's cool about motorcycles. Like a lot of people hate on big wheel baggers and stuff like that, but what I like about it is those guys let you paint some shit.
Yeah.
Like the real talent in our industry comes out on those bikes. Like there's a lot of cool painted choppers, but you're painting a peanut tank.
Yeah.
You know, but if you get to paint a fairing and you get to paint a big tank and a set of fenders, and I mean, like, there's some dudes slinging some shit on some paint jobs then.
Yeah.
And like, did you ever see Jeremy's personal bike from Lucky Strike, that blue?
Yeah, when me and Jeremy hung out, we down in Daytona, not last year, but the year before. I took some shots of his bike.
Yeah, so
I'll let you see it so you can critique it and tell me what bothered you
dude,
about
I
it.
don't want to critique anybody's photography. I'll critique your paint, but I will not critique your because those who can't do teach. So it's like, I can't paint, so let me go over and look at this helmet you just painted over here and tell you what's wrong with it.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's what's funny is, like, everybody always looks at me and like, so what would you have done? I'm like, I probably would have drove it stock because I didn't know what the hell to do, and it's like, because everybody it's like photography. So if you hand a photographer a picture, the first thing they do is, what you do? You look to see what's wrong with the picture. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a painter, you go look to see what's wrong with that paint job. Well, you don't stand back and go, that's badass.
Well, there's two things to that, right? Because usually we see, the first time we see any paint jobs nowadays, we see it on Instagram, right? And then right there if it's going to catch your eye. Yep. And when it does, and you finally see it in person, like you're looking at it with this, like, I don't look at other paint jobs to find imperfections. Yep. I look at them to dissect it. Like, right.
That's what I do with photography.
First, I wonder if he did this color first, and then you start looking for something.
That's why the arrow and lead dude is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was so funny. So I met Kyle from Execution Style shooting some stuff for him for 3M and for PPG. And he just comes in. I don't know who he is from Adam. I'd been following him on Instagram, and it's like, he comes in and goes, hey, I just want to say hi. I'm a big fan of your work and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, cool, dude. Yeah, stuff like that. Just shuts shit a little bit. He left. Then Kyle goes, you know who that was, right? And I was like, no. He told me, so I had to chase him out in the driveway. And like, dude, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
And it's like, my mind, I mean, I'm not a painter by any means. It's like, I painted black race cars back in the 90s, And, but it's, you just look at his stuff and it's like, because he comes from that oil painting mindset. And so, it's so easy to go, here's what you did wrong. And it's like, well, stuff's not really wrong. You just do it different. And it's your art form, And so when somebody sees something, they're like, well, I wouldn't have done that. I'm like, yeah, but that's what makes it his work.
Well, see,
it's like Kyle with the Cubert. I always call them the Cubert blocks.
Yeah.
Because we played Cubert when I was a kid. It's like, and it was funny as I was saying it to that kid that was in here the other day, is like, because it's hard. That's why people don't do it, you know? And it's like, but it's just, there's so many good guys out there and there's so much talent spread out. And again, on that whole thing, you see a picture on Instagram and sometimes, like people do, well, pictures don't do it justice. Well, there's some that pictures have done it better justice than what it deserved. And, Well,
so like what I like to say is I don't think it's fair to judge anybody's artwork because artwork it's
subjective.
It's subjective and it's in the eye of the beholder, some fucking proverb or some shit, right? But when it comes to paint, right? The thing that I try to tell everybody that I talk to, and I apply this to myself as much as possible, is that a lot of the process of paint is not art. It's technique and it's instructional shit. So if you're doing something and you leave a run in it, or you do something wrong in that process of painting that fucks with the quality, that's where, like, I would tell them, like Perowitz would do the custom paint show, right, everywhere, and you can ask Jeremy about the story. Me and him, we weren't judges this time, and we were in Daytona.
I was a judge one year.
Oh, you was?
Yep. And I was pickier than the painters. That's the funny part.
Well, that's the problem, is that like some of the anytime you're judging shit, right, especially art, custom paint jobs, right?
Yep.
Who's to say that paint job art is better than this technique wise?
Well, and I have a certain style. Like I'm straight 60s style. Yeah. Like I love Watson style paint jobs, and so some of the new tech stuff, and like that's when everybody was painting graffiti bikes and stuff like that. And I'm like,
so fucking over.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. But when it first came out, it's like when you see the first one, you're like, that's cool.
So Jetty,
but you don't need to see a second one.
So the Jetty, the one you're supposed to shoot his bike.
Yep.
His road glide he wants to do a graffiti bike. And I kept telling him, I was like, dude, that's just played out, dude.
Yep.
It's like, that's what I want. I'm like,
have you seen that guy from Italy that's like, he does like the Sistine Chapel on bikes, that Geisel Art or whatever it is? I have to find his Instagram.
No, I'd follow a couple people from over there that
like, it's the one that's like on the oil tank, it has a picture of Satan and it says, fuck, I fell. Have you not seen that bike?
I haven't seen it, no.
I'm going to have to send you that bike so that's the good thing with Instagram. So like, I go down these rabbit holes, like you find paint, like this guy's from Italy or something, and it's amazing. Like all of his paint jobs look like it's old cracked paint, but it's all
Gino something.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
He does a lot of like Hunter S. Thompson type shit.
Yeah. He's
with,
got like
Fear and Loathing. And
Yeah.
Dude's shit is phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. But like I saw
How
that
he cracks it.
I saw that oil tank and it had Satan on it and said, "Fuck, I fell." And I'm like, that's the funniest thing I've seen in forever.
I can't say his name. It's like Gino.
Yeah,
something.
he's from Italy or France, or I
follow that dude. He's pretty
like,
badass.
so we're both big fans of Olin's, and I run Olin's mountain bike stuff on my
Yeah.
stuff because Olin's shit's always been cool.
Yeah.
And I'm all throwing the, Finland or Norway or Sweden or wherever they're from, and I'm just like, yeah, it's
somewhere
like,
over there.
I know where they're from in the United States. They're from North Carolina, and those guys are pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I deal with Olin's from North Carolina.
Yeah.
The Olin's y'all,
American side.
the Olin's y'all. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
their stuff's cool. So there's another free plug. So
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, the weird thing about doing any kind of art is that, like, I think that we've all, I don't know, like, you enjoy getting the feedback, especially when it's something you're proud of and then
Yep.
other people like it, and it kind of gives you that fucking serotonin release,
Yep.
whatever the fuck it is. And
the thing is, problem now is I run into the thing where like now it's like I don't like it. Like I even look at my own stuff sometimes. I don't know if you're running this thing. It's like you're doing a good job.
yeah,
And you're like, but you feel like you're doing the same thing, So I run into that a lot. It's like, I think it's just my midlife crisis,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
so I'm like, we were talking earlier, you really don't want to look too much at other people's stuff because it's nice to be influenced on a technique, but not really on a style.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of style stealing,
Yeah.
going on in our end of the stuff now. And what's funny is like, it's funny how the market changed from that because, back in the day, if Vogue did a photo shoot and somebody else copied it or somebody copied an ad, they'd sue that company.
Yeah.
And like now you've got Instagram pages, they're just made of stolen photos. No credit, no
Memes,
nothing.
yeah,
They
that's
got
a big thing,
They
yeah.
got 3 million likes off of. I'm like, well, I got 20 photos on there. Like no credit. Then you message them and then like their fans jump on you and stuff like that. And like,
Yeah.
I need credit. They say stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it's like, dude, this is how I make a living.
Yeah.
But they wind up selling those pages for money. So what's the difference than like, say, if one of the paint companies used my photos and didn't pay me for it?
Yeah.
Like there's no difference. It's still, you're making business,
So like on what you just said though, like I think now it's more fractional styles now.
Yep.
Okay, well, like you said, there's so many people doing everything now, from photography to custom paint and everything.
Yep.
So how do you individualize yourself in this saturated market of such a pool with so many people? So like my style that I'm kind of known for now isn't nothing. It's not some like, oh my God, it's not Steve Gibson,
Right.
Arrow and Lead
Yep.
that took this oil painting thing and made it.
Well, it's the same way in
custom thing.
photography. I mean, there's your Pepper Yandells and your A. Ross Tylers and Dale Martins and like Richard Hanneman. I mean, like some of these guys almost 3D draw a car.
Yeah.
Or they shoot plate backgrounds and put a new one in, and it's like it's pure art. But it's like, is it photography? I mean, it is.
Yeah.
But there's a guy on Instagram, the Kaiser. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his stuff. Like he draws like 308 Ferraris laid out, and it's like video game stuff. And it's just like,
Well,
it's the same thing.
So what I was saying is like Poland, right?
Yeah.
And
Poland's
Poland
awesome.
He's one of my favorite painters right now. Like
Yep.
he posts something, I'm like, oh man, I just want to be a fly on the wall while
Yeah.
he works. And so I'm influenced by him.
Yeah, it's like if you looked at Arrow and Lead stuff, it's
Yeah.
like I could be a fly on a wall and I still wouldn't know what he did.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at though is that, like, just like I've said earlier, is that we're all influenced and it kind of helps shape us.
Yep.
Well, when I finally accepted and went down the panel route, the metal flake and
Yeah,
panel
yeah.
thing, because I tried to avoid it for a long time because it was such a fad thing. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And then when I finally did it, I found I didn't want to do it because it's the easiest thing to do in the custom paint world.
Yeah.
But I
The
found a way to.
camaraderie is good though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I found a way to complicate it and give me a challenge in it.
Yep.
Not that I'm so good, nothing like that. It just
Right.
for me.
Yep.
And then I fell in love with this helmet race style paint job stuff.
Yep.
And so I've kind of been morphing the helmet race style and the panel shit together, and it's kind of like my thing now.
Well, we all grew up on those like Santini paint jobs and the hot dog stuff, you
Yeah.
know, like let's throw some checker flag stuff on it. And it's like,
Yeah.
remember how checker flags were on everything back in the day?
Yeah.
And it's cool. I sit there and look at the helmets and I'm like, that's why I started following Poland in the first place,
Yeah.
is helmets. It's like, you know, he wants to paint cars and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, fucking paint helmets, you're fucking badass, you know. But it's like, but I get that you want to expand, because that Camaro that he painted was Zach from Z-Rods. That thing was cool.
Yeah, he did that for
you know?
SEMA last year. Right?
Yeah, SEMA last year. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing is like, you know, like I found things like, you know, traditionally when you have panels, like you don't have points. It's a lot of curves, right? And so I've tried to make longer points to give it a more directional feel.
Yeah, those helmets there are cool.
You know, and like I said, it's just it's a minor difference that has given me my.
I like how your paint is better than your drawings, because you know, like some people, their drawings are better than their paint. Well, and it's like, because Jeremy's the same way, because like Jeremy did this whole series on Instagram, like his drawings before he painted it, and I'm like, who drew this? Yeah, it's like an 8-year-old, you know.
That's the same thing. It's like,
I mean, that's better than an 8-year-old. I'd put that on my refrigerator. So
I just do it, you know, because that tape is expensive and it's easier to figure out lines. And I was telling someone else, so I'll do an outline of everything, the graphics. And if I'm not sure on where I'm going to do the colors, I'll make copies of that.
So I don't know if Simpson does this anymore, but they used to have drawings of their helmets.
Well, fuck, dude, I've got, you know, like we were talking about the iPad shit.
Yep.
I posted a video yesterday. Like I take a picture of the part I'm gonna do in any angle I want. And since I've drawn my whole life, I kind of can draw in perspectives and stuff. So I'll take a picture of, like, if I'm working on this helmet and I don't know how I want to do the top, I'll take a picture of the top.
Yep.
I'll throw it in fucking Adobe Draw.
Yep.
Trace it real quick.
I wonder if you could like CAD cam that. You know, like everybody's, you know, like they just 3D render, you know, like they'll scan it and then.
Well, yeah, they can. Like Bell does that with, like Schultz just did a helmet that I think Bell released, and it has, and they did that thing where they
you can spin it around, and but then you'll spend more time doing that than you'll actually paint it. So, because sometimes it's better just to.
Well, a lot of people, man, everybody has business advice for everybody all the time. And
I don't paint, so it's easy for me to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
You know what you should do.
Yeah. Well, when you look at these paint jobs, man, like, you know, I can only do so many, and you know, when I get to talking about it, people give me their opinions on maybe you could try this, or maybe you should do one helmet and sell it to the company. But right now, what I love about what I do is it, like, my customers earn it, and I get to earn their desire for my art. So.
Because they want your art.
Yeah,
and a helmet is a true art piece.
They have to wait for it, man, and it's not. I've been trying to. I'm trying to find the right words to describe it. I've been trying to train or influence my customer base to buy things or commission me to do work for the art of it and not the material possession of it. Right. So, like, it would break my heart if someone bought a helmet from me and I personalized it and made it for them and then they sold it to somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I get connected to these helmets, you know, at fucking 2 a.m. in my garage, drawing the 40th time for this.
Yeah, I was looking at one of the metal sculpture artists that I follow, and he's badass, and, like, I guess he builds pieces for this guy who's collect them, and the guy was going out of business or something like that, so he had to sell some of the art pieces, and the guy was posting they had them for sale, and it's like... But you could tell that he was sad that the guy had to sell them. Yeah. You know, because those were personal art pieces that, you know, he did for that guy. Yeah. So just like the same if you did one of those helmets for somebody and the guy's like, well, I got to sell it. You know, and it's like, I mean, I understand if it matches a bike and you sell the bike.
Yeah, so we try to get people not to match it to their bike, even though most people do that. Yeah. It like I said, it becomes another thing. You know, one of the great things, when you match it to your bike, then it kind of like...
Well, you know what's funny is bringing that up is, you know, that helmet Jeremy painted for Jetty?
Yeah.
That was... And I made fun of that Band-Aid peach color on the front of that helmet for 3 days. And then by the time I left the show, I'm like, I fucking love that color.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, that color made no sense, you know, when you first look at it. And then the more you look at it and see the way the light reflects off of it, and the more you move your head around it, and it's like... That's a badass color. Mm-hmm. It's like, but I would never pick that color. You probably would never pick that color.
Well, I mean, that champagne flake up there, that's my new flake from Paint Huffer. So it's like it becomes like Jeremy's color palette. Like I was telling you earlier, Jeremy, his paint jobs are very colorful, right?
They're very bright and very colorful.
He sees color in a different way.
You see my mountain bike, right? It's lime green and pink, and it's got paint house blue in it, and it's got pink hubs. And
See, that's the thing. It's like me. Like I like to think of myself, and I was describing this to somebody. I don't know if it definitely was on a podcast, but I like to think of myself as my style of paint jobs that are truly me are like that black and white photo with that color pop.
Yep.
So I love.
But you want that without being so dated that when you look at it now, you're like, oh, I know what time this was done because of that. So that's the cool thing is like, it's funny in the hot rod world because flames come and go.
Yeah.
Like a great flame job. Like you look at an old Perowitz flame job. Like he did a bagger for that guy in Maine probably 5-6 years ago, and it's all gold leafed around the flames. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can't stop looking at that bike. But it's so super. It's a black bike with yellow flames with gold leaf around the flames.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's funny how some of that stuff that style will be like, oh, flames are out. Then like 3 years later, flames are in, and it's like, but a good flame job never really goes out of style.
But think about that. Think about it across the board of all art. Everything nowadays, in my opinion, maybe it's just since I've been conscious to it, but in the last 10 years, everything is like fads from paint jobs to styles of photography to what's popular in the art world.
Well, that's the thing is you try to be relevant without being a fad. Yeah. And that's the tough thing. But if you can build a client base that hires you for you, then that kind of works itself out.
Yeah.
Because they're there for you, and they I know some people just pay me so I can stay on the road and eat.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if they even really want me to shoot their car, but they'll bring me in and let me shoot some stuff, and they'll give me some money, or they'll let me plug into their shop for 2 or 3 days. And so I know there's a lot of that because they probably feel bad for my wife, because she's a nice person and I'm a vagrant, I'm a drifter. And, but there's a lot of that, but again, it comes down to people, they love my art and almost my whole base is built on me driving a 1964 Corvair van 170,000 miles in 4 years, not on me driving a Mercedes Sprinter for 170,000 miles in 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's my buddy Mitch calls me a shapeshifter. Like he'll go to bed and I'm in one state, wake up the next morning, I'm 3 states over, and it's like I just have this thing that just moves me forward, and I can't not move forward, and it's like, I'm sure one day photography probably won't be a thing, because it's like everybody wants video now, so you're trying to work on video, just like you were saying you're trying to work on video.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to be well-rounded. Well,
that's goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where we don't value photos the way we used to.
Right.
And so that's why I've been trying to say.
Well, that's the thing. So I know originally this podcast we were supposed to talk about magazines.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Let's go into magazines on that whole thing. So magazines for 15 years knew the internet was there.
Yeah.
And they knew that they had to figure it out, and they didn't figure it out. But here's the thing. No one has really figured it out for the custom magazine style thing. So you look, because there for a while, there were some really good online magazines. And it's like, where did those car and bike online magazines go? It's like,
they got overran by ads.
That too. But here's the thing you run into. And again, this is an old person mindset because, we all grew up on like, I can't wait till Tuesday when the new magazines come out, because it was always on Tuesday at Walmart and Barnes & Noble and all that stuff. So you go in on Tuesday, new magazines are there, and you would buy that magazine, or you'd sit there while your mom's shopping, and you'd read Mini Truckin' or Street Chopper or whatever it was. And you would read every article, look at every picture, blah, blah, blah. So now it's like, well, internet's taken over. So take, for instance, Hot Rod's better at it because they're not flooding it too bad, but there is a lot of ads on it. But if you look at most online magazines, it's like, say I shot your bike goes up Monday morning at 9 o'clock. By next Monday, there's 27 other bikes, because there has to be a new 2 bikes a day or 3 bikes a day or whatever happens. And it's just like, your bike's not like, at least a car then was relevant for a month until the next month's issue. Now, if you build $1 million car, it's not relevant 3 hours from now, And that's the coolest thing now. So like Moon Eyes Japan's freaking awesome. Yeah. So you go on Instagram and like, I don't know if you've seen it. I guarantee you've seen it, but the wide body DeLorean.
Yeah.
So the wide body DeLorean is all over Instagram,
Yeah.
all over Facebook.
Well, what was
And,
okay? So SEMA, that fucking truck that the brown one with the camper on it,
Brown Sugar from River City Rods and
that
Customs.
fucking thing was amazing.
Yeah, if all goes well, I'm shooting that next week.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, those guys are. They built that blue 68 to 72. They're the best. They built that gold work truck, and Craig, who owns it, he owns a concrete cutting business, and he likes to keep really talented people employed, and it's like we need more people like Craig.
Yeah.
So it's like he lets guys build cool stuff. And their painter's a motorcycle painter. I think Convict's the bike shop there in Davenport. And then
Yeah, I've heard of
Stoll's Auto Body does a lot of paint for them and paints for other stuff. Super talented painter. He painted that. Of course, it's all PPG, but hey.
Well, I can't afford PPG, so see if they can send me a care package.
I'm driving a Sprinter van with like 8,000 gallons of copper penny, and
Dude, that shit is expensive.
yeah, it's
like I said,
with the 8115 matte clear on it, so
Yeah.
which is the best. 8115, 8117 is the best matte clear in the
So
industry,
if you go look at my
bar
paint
none.
cabinet, the only thing that I have in there for
Is matte clear.
PPG is matte clear
Yeah.
because their shit's the best.
Matte clears. So we started a hashtag through our shop that built my wife's truck, the High Plains Drifter, and the Sprinter's named Home Wrecker because I'm never home, and it's the Home Wrecker, and but everything's satin painted and it's all water based, 8115, 8117. So it's and you saw the Sprinter. It's got 173,000 miles on it. The paint job has over like 100 and.
It was 3 years ago when y'all built that thing.
So we built
really?
we built it for SEMA 2017. So it debuted at SEMA 2017 painted. I had it for that whole year, but we were showing the Drifter and all that because it went to LST.
So I was there as 2017 for House of Color, and that's when I first met Jeremy there.
Yep.
And then 18 is when me and Jeremy
and
hung out.
18, Dirt Reynolds was in the PPG booth. Yeah.
I didn't go last year.
Yep.
So
It was
we
how
were talking
crazy.
about something else though.
We're talking about magazines.
We're talking about magazines.
So-
yeah.
But the one bright spot in the industry is some of the boutique magazines.
True. I agree.
But so you get a Wheel Hub, you get an Iron and Air. I don't know if you've seen that motorcycle magazine. They're leaning toward the Porsche side a little bit. So,
Well,
but you can still appreciate it.
I feel like I should be drinking coffee while I look at that
Yeah.
magazine and twirling my.
I have a really nice. Well, I'm like everything. I'm like, we always make the joke that I'm like, you know how like there's the main vampire that started all the vampires.
Yeah.
And it's like I live in a van. I take pictures. I have a beard. It's like if it looks like
You
a
got a
hipster
flannel
walks,
on.
like I have a Dixon flannel on. I actually was a Dixon model for this one. So on the release of this one, I think it's the Gunfighter Sunlight. I don't even know the name of it, so
That's
I probably should
terrible.
shut up before I get too far. But but yeah, so you get those good boutique magazines like a Wheel Hub. You get Jesse, when Jesse did Garage. Garage magazine was amazing, but he was so far ahead of his time.
Yeah.
But like they had great articles in that magazine because you had that guy from, what was it, Paint? That's not Paint Zoo, but it was Circus Paint. Remember from like the 70s that painted all the
yeah.
drag cars? So there was like an article on them in it. And, there was always cool stuff with Cole Foster in it and stuff like that. So it was like, that's how cool. It's like a men's magazine, but it had cars in it. Jesse was so far ahead of it. I wish they'd bring that back.
Yeah.
But it's funny is like all these magazines that I tell people they should buy, like I'm not cool enough to shoot for them.
Yeah.
So it's like, but there's a ton of good European magazines.
It seems it's super weird how Europe has been able to carry on a magazine
Yep.
like brands, but here in America, like, because it's the same thing. Like, I was in love with Show Class. Show
Right.
Class was
Yep.
a magazine that I thought was, put it like this, I'm a little easy rider-ish. I don't mind seeing a nice little pair of tits or something
Yep.
in a magazine,
Yep.
or just some edgy ads.
Yep.
I like that. I like that grassroots.
In
shit.
High Rod we have like, I don't know if you remember when Church did the little square lowrider and custom magazine. So there was those. Then Hop Up is out, and the traditional hot rod does little small, really great print. And Rodder's Journal, it's like Rodder's Journal was like the premier glossy paper, real
Yeah.
thick. And I was lucky enough to be able to shoot for them for a while and still do when they need me. But, they try to shoot everything themselves. So usually if I shoot for them, it's like, crap, we need this fast. Who do we know? Oh, John lives in a van. He'll go shoot
Yeah,
it.
he'll be there
You know,
soon.
so it's like give it to Mikey. He'll eat it.
You
but
should
it's-
just like, since you travel so much, you should just start like a small little shipping company.
I
within the
should
van.
just shoot everything so everybody has to get it from me.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, you want that? I already got it. I
Well,
got it.
so what worked out good for me this year is I had kind of a slow year. Like my main gig is doing stuff for PPG.
Yeah.
So I get to do all the hot rod ads and posters, and with the industry, it's kind of slowing down a little bit, and and then after a while, you wind up shooting. I've shot for them for like 6 or 7 years, so they have 6 or 7 years of custom stuff I've shot for them. So other than like doing Charlie Hutton's poster and Bobby's poster and stuff like that, they don't need a ton of new stuff because I'll go to Hot Dogs and hang out with them for 2 days and shoot everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, we really don't need anything new from Hot Dog, and so Good Guys, the car show series, they hired me on this year. They have a really great magazine, but it only goes to their, if you're a member.
Yeah.
But it's really good print, really big. They just let me be me.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, what do you want? Like, just do you.
Yeah.
And they just wanted a different eye because, like if you've done 10, 15 shows in a row at Columbus, it's like, well, we don't want the same thing, but we're at Columbus.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is too, is I can go to the shop and shoot the car where the car's from.
Yeah.
And not worry about shooting at the show, so that like everything in that issue from the show doesn't look like it's shot on the parking deck where every car's been shot for the last 15 years.
So one of the things I've been thinking, I had this conversation last week with a friend. We got a friend out of Houston that's doing a magazine. I want to say it's Grassroots magazine, and he's a photographer, and he's he was kind of following the chopper thing, which.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie. Like there's enough fucking magazines with choppers in it. There's so many other bikes out there, and so
Right.
many other like cultures
Yep.
that could use some exploitation.
Yep. Well, that's like me. I would love to have somebody like, don't tell my wife this, but I would shoot it for free.
Yeah.
And so like I just did the Mac Tools calendar. So go to your Mac Tools guy and get your new 2020 calendar, and I shot it. So there's another free plug.
There you go.
But but I would love to do.
It's a Snap-on house here, buddy.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I have a Mac Tools logo on my Sprinter van too. So. No, but so here was my deal is like I would really love to do a 60s custom lowrider annual on really good print like Rodder's Journal or something
Yeah.
like that. And it's like, but it's money,
Yeah.
so it's like I would love to do it, and customs and lowriders need the love. There's so many.
Yeah.
Like our booth at SEMA this year, we had 3 great lowriders in the booth, but Lowrider Magazine feels like it's like 12 pages now.
Yeah.
It's like still has a great cover and a great back cover, but then it's like Rod and Custom got that way toward the end when I was shooting for them. It's like you could almost see through the paper. Mini Trucking did the same thing,
Well, all those wheel companies that filled up those catalogs.
Yeah.
Well,
that was what was funny is like all it takes is one of the companies that already have a good following to jump on the bandwagon. So I want to think it wasn't Dub, it was like Donk or Box and Bubble or like one of those crazy magazines.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 years ago did a muscle car issue, and they killed it because they had used all their photographers because there's that old school mindset on what's cool and the new school what's cool. So you look at like a wheel hub, it's all new style photography and it's all badass.
Yeah.
But then you're fighting with the old guard on the old magazines, and it has to be shot at sunset and has to be all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But so this magazine went and it's all shot like the current stuff is. And everybody in the car industry loved it. But what's funny is every ad in it was like for 30-inch Suburban wheels and stuff like that. So they only did one issue.
Yeah.
Because the ads didn't match, So when Street
the people
Rodder
that put the money in, they
So
didn't.
when Street Rodder, does one of theirs, it's not their fault. Like if they do, it's all issue 32 Fords, you can't sell advertisement to 69 Camaros, so the markets have been changing a lot too. And you look at a company like Detroit Speed that does like everybody's suspensions and like a roaster shop and all this other stuff. It's like their Instagrams are huge and everybody knows who they are. It's not like they really have to advertise,
Yeah.
but they still do because they believe in the industry. But it's
like when I send out my media package for
Yep.
people that want to be sponsors, like that is one of my selling points on sponsoring a podcast versus like magazines.
Right.
Is it you know, even though I told you probably didn't need to go listen to my first ones, but guess what? People do every day.
Right.
And that guy that paid me $50 a year and a half ago,
Yep.
his shit's still
he's
working
still,
for him.
He's still earning his money.
And
Yep.
so if something happens in this world and I become a YouTube star or some
Yep.
shit, whatever happens, if this thing goes better and keeps going, I'll never take the episodes down. That $50 ad is
Yep.
still working from 2 years ago.
So you know what's crazy? You talk about that on your ad. That guy pays $50. That's all he's ever had to pay. When I first got into commercial photography, I didn't realize it worked this way. So when you would go and work for a company and you would shoot something, like every time I shoot something, I give you a price. That's what it costs. You can fly it behind a blimp. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know? And then I would have the company call and go, hey, we want to use it for this. What I owe you? And I'm like, it'd be cool to get paid again. Don't get me wrong. But I'm
Yeah.
like, you already paid me for it.
Yeah.
You know? So it's kind of funny how, you know, like, I think we kind of screwed ourselves in the market sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like wedding photographers. It's like, it's such a scam at certain levels because it's like, it's $3,000 to shoot your wedding. But if you want the pictures, it's going to cost you more. And if you want prints, you got to buy it from me. And it's like, it's smart. I mean, really, I should see. Here's what.
So that's the thing is like the kind of people we are. We work on these cars. We grew up in garages. Like we have a different mindset. Like we're more like fuck, man.
Well,
like,
I do the same
like
thing.
What this
So
dude's doing, and I'd rather help him out than like nickel and dime him to
well,
death.
so this is what happened to me is like this year, and I don't think good guys understood it, but I would shoot somebody's car that won Muscle Car of the Year contender or something. So
Yeah.
all I had to do basically was shoot features. So I would shoot these features, this guy car, and I'm just shooting at the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a cool picture, but it's not like, hey, let's go over here and let's shoot at night and let's light paint and let's do all this other stuff. So I have like an hour in the feature.
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, I like to have some pictures. Yeah, I'll just send them to you. I'm like, they're going to be on my hard drive. What am I going to do with them?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and there's like 25 pictures. It's like somebody else that was there shot the interior and the engine. So all I got is outside pictures.
Yeah.
And it's like, good guys paid me for them. And you were nice enough to pay good guys to come to their show. Excuse me. And then, I mean, I'm all about making money. But like I was telling you, it's like, when the lottery was up to $1 billion, everybody kept going, so what are you going to do if you win? I'm like, the exact same thing I'm doing right now. I was like, but I probably have more mountain bikes.
I wonder if you started doing the like Smoky Mountain route, like sit there on the highway and have the signs
on
and do
the
that.
Devil's Backbone.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, I've bought pictures from those before just because like that's the only time you ever
Yep.
get cool riding shots or whatever.
You know what's funny is I always made fun of those guys and the drag race guys. Like they'll just sit there on a bucket and just click, click, click. But whenever you go to a good guy show, there's a guy there that takes a picture of every car going in, and then they Photoshop it like they put it in front of a barn, you know, instead of where you came in.
Yeah, it's big green screen as you come
And
in.
you'll walk by, and there'll be like 70-year-old guys on scooters sitting in line to buy a picture of their car, and I'm like, yeah, I probably should have done that. But it's following your craft again.
Yeah.
Like you could go to the mall and airbrush T-shirts and probably make more money.
Oh yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
but
Or I could do it. There's so many ways I can make this different, but then again, would people value it the same way if I don't value it that
Right,
way?
yep.
You know what I mean? So
we had that deal where we talked about Joe Martin earlier when he was wanting to sell that Lincoln, and it's like the bikes were business,
Yeah.
but cars are what he loves. And now he has a TV show building cars, so you can tell that's what he really loves. And
Yeah.
the dude's a great guy. You know, it's like Joe's still Joe. You see Joe on TV, Joe is Joe. You see Joe at SEMA, Joe's still Joe. And it's
Yeah.
like, he's another one of those guys, you go hang out with him and Mandy, you want to go work harder.
Exactly.
Because they're like, everything just slows down a little bit. I've slept on his couch a few times too when I'm driving around the corner.
Yeah.
In fact, she gives me, she's like, why don't you come by and sleep on our couch anymore? We have a nicer couch now.
So like we were kind of talking about the magazines. So they were
squirrel.
Yeah, they were great. It's changing now. There's still a couple grassroots magazines
Yep.
out there that are creating
Well, and I
great
think
content.
the grassroots magazines are always going to be there because
I think there's a generational gap between people that would never buy a magazine.
Right.
It's the same thing like my brother. He's 24. He does not buy albums.
right.
Right? He doesn't buy the album
Well,
through things.
that's the crazy thing. Remember when you were a kid and you're cruising and you're whatever you had at the time,
Yeah.
you'd have a whole folder of CDs.
Yeah.
And it's like I remember getting broke into once.
I was about to say that.
And I had every dime I ever spent was on car stereo when I was in the mini trucks.
Yeah.
and then someone broke into it at the mall, and all my CDs were gone. And I think I probably had more money than CDs than I did my stereo, because it was like every CD I had was they didn't steal the head unit, they stole all my CDs.
Fuck, dude, that's worth money.
And it's like, and it was like those boxes, like those folders that would hold 500.
Yeah.
And you had 2 of them in your car. You had 1,000 CDs driving down, cruising the strip.
It's so much more work to listen to music back then.
I
You had
know.
to like flip through it. And
Dude,
then hope
now
it
when I
wasn't
drive,
scratched.
my phone, it's crazy how the phones are, because it's like podcasts and Spotify and iTunes.
I do
and
audiobooks too.
audiobooks, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is now too is, you know, I've been trying to make myself read more and try to learn stuff. So like my wife and I kind of got into whiskey, but it's one of those ones where whiskeys and bourbons, but it's like we're such lightweights. We drink one drink over a night.
My
and we're
wife
done.
taught me how to drink it.
And we're done.
So I'm not good at it, but
And so
I'm
we're
trying.
done. So we have really nice whiskey, but it'll take us forever to drink it.
Yeah.
So like I have bartending books to know how to make my wife good drinks, and I have a good coffee maker to make my wife good coffee. And it's just like, and then we try to cook good food, and then of course we ate at Whataburger tonight. So, but you know, it's one of those ones. It's like you go on there, and it's like at one time this book was $40. And I just got it on iTunes for $3.99.
Yeah.
You know, on the Apple Store, and it's like,
But the problem is that all these people that are making this shit, the
Yeah.
books, the everything, they're still killing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
audiobooks cost.
well, a lot of those ones too that are like a lot of that stuff that teaches you how to do something is still relevant.
Yeah.
So like that book probably sold when it was a hardback, and people bought 1 million of them hardback.
I mean, think about like if like an audiobook, like one of the last ones I listened to was Outliers
Yep.
by Malcolm
that one was
Gladwell.
good. Yep.
And this dude, you know, so many people, one of the bestsellers, and it's like an audiobook that I paid $17
Yep.
on whatever the
It's
book
worth
app.
it to not have to read it.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't have time to read it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Well,
And
that's
audio-
like there's the one that was really cool this year is, I don't know if you've heard of David Goggins.
I've obviously heard of him
So
through podcasts.
so
and
his
stuff.
book, if you bought it as an audio book, was really cool. Is this guy read his book, and then at the end of each chapter, David would talk to the guy about the stories and what was going on in his head and all this
Oh,
other
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
you get the way the book's written, and at the end they discuss what was going on in his mind at that time in his life and all this other stuff. And it was a really cool way
Yeah.
to do it. And it's like the audio book at that point is actually better than the actual written word.
So the
You
one
know?
I'm listening to right now, I'm a big fan of Chris Ryan.
Yep.
He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a
Yep.
lot, and I'm reading his Civilized to
So he lives in a van too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does
Yep.
what yeah.
Yep.
And the he's an awesome guest on Joe Rogan all the time, and his books are good too. So
Yep. And also one of my favorite builders is named Chris Ryan too. So
Yeah.
he's Ryan's Rod and Custom, built a killer Continental last year. So he's actually a motorcycle guy too. So
So what do you think? I mean, like where I mean, my opinion, the online magazine shit is a joke. Like,
it is a joke, and it's tough because like I make my living now doing corporate stuff, and it's like, but if the magazines go away, where are the ads going? You know, I mean, it's one of those ones. It's like I need a
that's-
crystal ball
they're
so
going
I
to
know
Fast
what to
Life
do.
podcast, man. That's where they're going.
Yeah, they're going.
No,
Yeah, but I don't need to take pictures for podcasts.
Well, that's the thing. So I think that now, that's why we were talking about like the video stuff, right?
Yep.
So like the pictures are they get lost so quickly.
Yep.
And so now you have to have this well curated video to put this content out in a way that
Yep.
engages people more.
Right.
To make it work again.
Well, that's like even if I've got 10 good years of really badass photography on this one server. So if I went through and took everything and made slideshows of every photo shoot, I have like so much content that could just be slideshows with music. Cause like I subscribe to Artlist,
Yeah.
which music, you know, you just download your music and you can use it for commercial purposes and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I could one of the people that really kind of makes me want to work harder too is Dennis Gage from My Classic Car. So everybody laughs. It's the guy with the handlebar mustache, and he's actually the Pringles guy. And but the thing is like that dude legitimately loves cars,
yeah.
and he's become like a media empire, and he's dumping all of he's got 15 years of shooting car videos, and he's dumping it onto YouTube.
Nice.
You know, and so he's figuring out how to, because TV's going away too. You know, and it's Netflix and it's Hulu.
Streaming.
And it's everything streaming.
Yeah.
Because even if someone's watching on TV, it's like all the TV shows I watch are Hulu, Netflix. You know, it winds up on there, or HBO Go or something like
Yeah.
that. So it's like you got to try to ride that wave without getting thrown and go the wrong direction. But I think YouTube is, for like guys like me, that what I do, I think that's our best option at the moment.
Yeah.
And one of his videographers, who's been super great to me the whole time, where I've been trying to figure out the next level. Like, it was funny because he was like, if you get your shit together and figure it out, then we'll put you on our network, and that gives you more of a following and stuff like that. And so he sends me a video and goes, hey, do something kind of like this. And it's a video of the Ring Brothers Javelin, and half the video is my photos. Because it's all stuff I did for the rings, and it's the rings to provide for media companies. So they took all these stills that I shot and then interlaced it with some video they shot of the car doing a burnout and stuff. But all my badass light painted pictures and all that stuff I shot in the shop, it intertwines with that with some music. Then the car burns out, and then Mike and Jim are outside, and it's like, well, shit, I could have done that. But you know what? I didn't do that. But that's probably where my stuff's going to go.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of just mixed in together, because I think there'll still be a place where people will want a poster hanging on the wall.
Oh yeah.
And so there'll still be that, and that's
you
what
just
cool.
might have to get more like, hey, this poster is fucking $40.
Yeah. Well, I do those metal prints, and I've been doing metal prints forever, and so people like those on the walls. But that's another big part of my business right now is individuals, and individuals keep me fed. And it's like people are like, hey, I have a car collection, but what's funny is, you'll get the guy who has $1 million car, and that guy will fight me on price all day long. But the guy who built his car in his garage doesn't even question. Like, he won't even ask me half the time how much.
It's because it's passion, man. That brings me to this next.
But then it comes. I know.
Okay.
I'll interrupt. But what's funny about that too is, like, I'm told that joke. Is like, I've known you for 15 minutes now, so we're friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, my wife's like, you need to stop making friends, because those are the guys I'm like, yeah, just give me this. It's like, the dude would have given me $1,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wind up leaving with $250.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's like, the guy loves his car, and I like the guy, and I've met his family and the kids and the dog, and and they'll take you out to dinner and all this other stuff, and you're like, oh, these guys are so great.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, oh, I just lost $750.
If you look at what magazines were and the corporate side of it, and how thick it went up, and how many careers there were in there, and you look at like how now we all have these badass iPhone 11s, this great phone to take great pictures, great video, and we can all create our own content. We're all our own little magazines now, right?
Yep.
And the difference is that magazines, in my opinion, got convoluted, or if that's the right word. They got just oversaturated with people that were there for a job and not because they were passionate.
Yeah, well, that too, when you got where it became, everything got ran by bean counters instead of car people and bike people, and that's just the nature of the business, because everybody sees something that's successful, and they either want to snatch it up or be part of it.
A magazine has always been responsible for helping cultivate the trends, right?
Yep.
But then you hear people talk about, well, we're trying to figure out which gets the best response. I'm like, well, are you creating a trend? Or are you looking for what's already popular? So if you're on, like, for a while, like Super Street Bike, the magazines that I used to do a lot of work with, they wanted to put bikes that did wheelies on the cover because they felt like that sold more out of the deal.
And, Hot Bike and all them did that for a while too. Yeah. But that's the thing too, is like, I think a lot of people forgot what got us there in the first place was people building cool shit.
Yeah.
And everybody forgets about the people building cool shit.
I've told Jeff Holt this, but when I built my gold FXR, which I don't have pictures of it, like, I was proud of that bike, and it was kind of it really changed my life doing that bike. And I put a shit ton of miles on that bike in a year, and I rode that bitch coast to coast, event to event.
And that's what you should do.
And like, I did all this work, built this bike, did all this shit, and then all I wanted was for one of my own bikes to be in hot bike. I've had hot bike things before, but it was never something I did.
Yep.
And then just like, we're not putting any more panel painted bikes in our magazine.
But that's the thing,
like,
is
this thing this California thing had been sweeping across the country, and now you have all these other people in the country that are building shit that's as badass as what's there or better, based on whatever you want to look at it at. And you cut it off because you've already done. I wasn't happy about that.
Well, that's what's funny, is the way the trends go. Is I remember when every '54 Chevy was chopped.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, my buddy had a bagged unchopped 54, and it's like cover. Because he had an unchopped 54. It's like, when's the last time you saw a 54 custom that's flaked that wasn't chopped? You know, and it's like, it's just funny. And, you know, I really miss the good old days. I think a lot of the stuff, too, is like everybody forgot about how good the builders are and how hard they work. And it's like, back in the day, it was like, if the car was badass, it'd be in 4 different magazines. And then it got into that whole, well, if you let somebody else shoot it, we're not going to run it.
Yeah.
And then half the time, the magazine is sit on it for a year and a half after that. And it's like, and then everybody blames the photographer. And I'm like, hey, I did my part. It's on the editor now, you know? And it's like, but then the magazines now, like, they have their hands tied. I have editors that, like, I can't tell them if it'll get cover or not because it has to go to this office. And this office has to tell me if this kind of vehicle will sell.
Well, you see that cover right there? That's my bike, my first big wheel that I ever built for myself. And the reason that's on the cover is because my company at the time paid a fuck ton of money.
Oh yeah, well that's always been the way it was.
It was like $10,000 for like 2 or 3 months of advertising, and then they gave us a cover.
Yep. Well, we were telling that story too earlier. Is like I remember the first time that Courtney Hollowell sent me to shoot a bagger.
Yeah.
At Daytona, and I wound up shooting FBI's bike, the blue and yellow supercharged bike. And but when he sent me, he goes, hey, I need you to shoot some baggers. He's like, forget about chop, because all I was doing was shooting for street chopper then.
Yeah.
And he goes, forget about choppers. You're going to go shoot baggers. And I was like, what the fuck's a bagger?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's been a while, you know, and I was like, because when I grew up, they were all dressers. Because like my uncle had a dresser, you know, and it was like, so they were all dressers. And it was like, so I go down there and I was like, well, how do I know a cool one when I see one? And he goes, well, if it's not factory paint and has a custom front wheel, because like you could have like a stock rear wheel on them back then.
Yeah, that one had a stock rear wheel.
Yeah, so it was just funny how it, and then all of a sudden we morphed into like, how big of a wheel can we put on it? And it's like, but that's the thing is like, that's the creativity though. It's like the guys that are unleashing painters are the guys that are doing that. Then you got good companies building good parts. I mean, it was like there for a while I was worried because, you know, there was all these Chinese knockoff parts and stuff. But then people who actually paint the bikes are like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Some of that shit was actually not as bad as some of the American made stuff.
No, it's,
what killed that was the constant strive to do something different instead of it became not about putting out more quality stuff, and that's why when I talk about a lot of the
quantity, not the quality.
It was a quantity, like so you get all these shops, they're doing it cheaper, they're cutting, they're doing this,
and then you get a lot of people building the same thing, which is a different
but
paint
then
job.
you still got a couple shops that are still here today, like Covington and DA Performance.
Dude, I stopped and visited Covington's on my way to SEMA.
Yeah,
because I'm like, oh crap, I'm going through Oklahoma, and I'm like, I haven't seen Dave, and of course Jerry was out and his wife was out, but I got to see Dave and see the guys at the shop, and it's like, dude, I've loved their bikes from day one.
Well, that's the thing is like they
build a better Cholo bike than anybody.
Yeah.
Like if I could have one of their engraved bikes, it's just like those guys just sick. Yeah, and it's like, but they consistently keep building cool stuff.
Yeah, well, they, you know, like I said, the integrity of them as a shop, they're doing their art and they're sticking to their art. No matter what the trend says, they take that trend and they, you know, I can do my thing in this trend.
That's how a lot of times too that, you know, people are good and solid. It's like if you look at Brian Clock or you look at Jerry Covington and Dave Covington, those guys, is like a lot of those guys working there have been there for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then when you meet those guys, like you want to hang out with those guys too. Like those guys that work at the shop are just as cool as Jerry or Dave or Brian. And like Dan Cheeseman that works for Clock that does all their UTV stuff. Like I always like seeing that guy.
So you said this earlier when we were sitting at the photo shoots, like if this shop is if they're doing business right, they're doing business because they plan to be here in 15 years. Yep. So they have a much different attitude towards how they carry themselves, as opposed to like if a dude's just trying to hustle to get the rent paid this month and he's, you know, just in, you know what I mean? Like I've seen these shops. I mean, as a painter, I've worked for shops. That's the thing is too, is like you see all the shops that have stuck around had a part. Yeah. You know, it wasn't just we built a cool bike. Like they actually started building, even if they just had footboards or, you know, like they had something that people wanted. Yeah. You know, that's like a lot of the, you know, like everybody runs Roland Sands freaking air cleaners, you know, because they make a cool air cleaner. Yeah. So like you'll have a custom bike from nose to tail with a Roland Sands air cleaner on it, you know. There. Yeah. So, but it's just funny. So like if you could
build bikes and then still build cool stuff. Like, you go back to like Detroit Speed, like they build some of the best suspension stuff, and then Scott's Hot Rods builds cooler stuff, Roaster Shop, stuff like that. Like, they're known for cars they've built. Like, Detroit Speed won SEMA with a black Camaro last year, so they're known for building that car, but they're more known for their parts now. But that also lets them build a better car because they don't have to rely on just building that car. And then they're putting their parts on it too, you know, so it just helps sell their parts even more, you know. So if you look at a lot of those shops, they've actually had product. Yeah. And all the ones like I'm good friends with Javon from Pickard, and they've always had some of the best looking wheels on the planet. And, you know, it's like, therefore, they ran that wave really good. Then Glendine there in Oklahoma, like that guy built some killer wheels.
That's what I had on that bike before I sold it.
Every time I go to Oklahoma, it's like, oh, I wonder what Aaron's doing. You know?
Yeah, I haven't seen or heard from them in a while. I don't know if he's still.
But there's so many people that were super talented and built a good product. Like Brass Balls was building cool stuff too, and it's just like
he really ramped up his parts thing over the last couple of years.
Yeah, he's always had cool stuff, but I always think he's also that one that's like he's a year too early. Like, he's so far ahead of the curve. Yeah. Like, when the part's going to be cool, it's too early. Yeah. And like, so it'll be on a few things, and then like a year later, like somebody else will come out with it. Like, oh, this is the next best thing. I was like, freaking Dar did that like 2 years ago. Yeah. Well, that's like in the car industry. There's a guy, Icon 4x4, and he does these derelict cars, which are on Morrison chassis, and they're all just like patinaed old Mercuries and stuff like that, but they're all brand new cars underneath, like new LSs and stuff. And it's funny because that's where it's at, I think, on the custom stuff. Is like there's Boris at Street Machinery, like they're just doing LSs and chassis and wheels on all original cars. And the Roaster Shop's building their chassis on originals, because in our industry on the car thing, it's like a driver used to be $30,000. A driver's $100,000 now, you know. And people aren't making that much more money now than they were then, and people still got to pay rent. So I mean, just to have a car to drive around that's basic in the custom car scene is like $100,000 now. I mean, anybody that does their own work can build a cheaper car and all that stuff. But if you want to go, if you see a cool car driving down the street, not perfect, and it's like a '64 Impala or something, you're gonna pay $100,000 to buy that car.
Well, that's what also separates the fact. I mean, when you talk about custom, right? If everybody can afford it, right? If it was that easy to go pick it off a shelf, then would we really desire it the same way?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's
but the thing is, it's become the hip thing too. Yeah. To have a cool car or a cool bike, it's like, well, look at the cafe side of the motorcycle industry. It's like it's just full of hipsters. Yeah. And I also don't want to knock on hipsters, because a lot of the handcrafted stuff that's out there, the knife makers and the leather guys, and like a lot of those real good craftsmen are in business because of those people. Yeah. You know, it's like we don't all, but you also have the bad side of it. Like, I make artisanal beard wax, you know, like somebody makes that. It's like, do we really need that? But like, you see a guy, there's so many great custom knife makers out there now. Like, I go down that rabbit hole on Instagram. Like, every once in a while I have to start unfollowing people, because I go down a rabbit hole of following, oh, this guy's like Damascus steel. I'm in love with Damascus steel. It's like, so someone's like Damascus, I'm like follow. Yeah. And like, you see these guys. So of course Jesse makes knives now, like kitchen knives and stuff. But I don't know if you know Rick Petco from Orange County Choppers. Like, that dude builds a killer knife.
For real?
Yeah. He can't get a haircut worth shit, but but that guy's super awesome. He's always been super cool to me. I'm just making fun of him. But it's funny because I love following his feed now since Orange County Choppers, because it's all old Indens and old Harleys, and he builds one of the sexiest kitchen knives you've ever seen. And it's like, because everybody's all like, oh, like, look at this. I was like, have you seen Rick's knives? And I'm like, they're like, oh shit. But it's like, I can't afford none of that. Like, I want one of Jesse's paring knives. It's like $2,000 for a paring knife, you know? And it's like, and I totally understand the craftsmanship of it, and people will pay $2,000 for a Jesse James paring knife.
like we were talking about leather guys a while ago. So this is a wallet that my buddy made for me. He made me a wallet from California. It goes by Spilt Milk. Yeah. And he gave me one 2 years ago. And when I picked up his bike, I was painting it for him, and he just, man, hey, I make leather wallets.
Awesome.
And I've had it forever. And then,
so there's like a funny one. My wallet I use now, and Kyle Hicks will hate this. He made me a chain wallet 15 years ago, I think, and he made me a business card holder. So it has like a chicken with a camera on the front of it. So everybody that's known me for a long time, my first full custom was a Thunderbird. So everybody called me Chicken because of Thunder Chicken.
Yeah.
So that's why my wife knows when someone calls me Chicken, they knew me from the mini truck days.
Yeah.
So, but I've been carrying this around, but I've also, last year before last, he made my wife one of his new wallets.
Yeah.
For her for Christmas, and it's as nice as anything Louis Vuitton makes.
Yeah.
You know. And,
Well, that's the thing. Like, this stuff is all hand done.
Yeah, it's
you know,
awesome,
and like,
well, I started following somebody the other day, and he takes baseball gloves and takes them apart and makes wallets and stuff out of them. So it's like, it'll be like an old Johnny Bench glove.
Yeah.
And it'll have Johnny Bench's face on it and all the stitching and stuff. And it's like, dude, that stuff's cool.
and to me, it's like just like the photography, just like
Yep.
having a photo. It's like, I like the fact that I have something that when this thing was being made,
Yep.
the guy was thinking about me.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
in
that's
some
the
kind of
way that I'm with-
narcissistic way, but just
Yep.
he was making this for me. Just like I'm making
Yep.
this helmet look
Yep.
like this for the guy that's paying me to do
Yep.
it. So
well, that's the way I'm with my photography too.
Yeah.
It's like someone wants me to take the photo, and so I'm there to take the photo for that guy.
Yeah.
But I also do the whole, what would you like to see? And then they'll
trust me,
tell
like-
me some stuff I've done in the past and like style they
I'm a
like.
huge fan of Hicks's work. So
Yeah.
like whenever he was doing this, I was like,
Yeah.
man, I haven't seen Hicks's page in a while. I looked at it, I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, man, this stuff's dope too.
Yeah.
But I like this, man. Like, this is,
Yeah.
you know, it means a lot to me to have
Yeah.
this, and I'm gonna.
And
I'm
nobody
gonna,
else has it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless
That's the
someone
cool thing
copies
is-
my colorway,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you know, I mean, yeah, it happens.
but that is what's cool about.
But
like,
you also want your. So what's funny, you know, you talk about it is it's like people following bands,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you love your band, you listen to your band and stuff like that. Then their band becomes popular, and you're like, screw those guys.
That's how I
You
thought
know?
about Dixon Flannel for a long time.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that's funny is because, you know, like everybody was giving Danny a hard time the other day for that Made in the USA thing and all this other shit. But, dude, I love his flannels because we were talking about this is I love flannel, and I've had like Marmot and all these other stuff you can buy off the shelf, you know, and I am a total dude when it comes to doing laundry. Like all my mountain bike clothes and my flannel all go in the same wash.
Yeah.
And then like my collars still stand up.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like I love, and it's a quality product. It's like I can spend the same amount at a designer store, and then in 3 months the shit's thin, got holes in it. You know.
So it is. I went through that phase with it because I remember whenever I started buying the flannels, it was very underground.
And then
for
you
us.
look at the thing like he did with Brian.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
tearing up a $40,000 check. You know.
One day I'm going to be able to do that.
I wish I was rich enough to, somebody give me 40 grand, I'm not tearing it up.
Yeah.
It was funny is like I was talking to a business guy
I
the
don't know
other
if
day.
my bank account, if that'll fit in my bank
Oh,
account.
my wife wishes if you gave me a $40,000 check, my wife would automatically already have it in the account. Well, that's the cool thing. We're living on the road now that makes it easier. Is like you can deposit checks with your phone,
Yeah.
and stuff. Now, because everybody asks like, how do you live on the road? I'm like, it's so easy now with electronics.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I just deposit checks with my phone, and it's like I don't have to go home.
Yeah.
You know, I have a mailing address that mail goes to, but who mails me anything anymore? All my bills are email.
The only thing I get mailed to me is IRS shit, so I'm
Yeah,
good
yeah.
with not getting that.
Well, luckily we have a good accountant, so hopefully I don't have to deal with that. Knock
But
on
yeah,
wood.
you know, like there is a lot of cool people, and that's what, you know, I can't complain because at the same reason that guy's making knives and this guy's making wallets, I mean, this is the same shit, and
Yeah.
I want my customers to buy that just like his Spilt Milk's customers.
Well, you have to run that fine line. I think we talked about this earlier. Like, you can't have everybody hate your stuff.
Yeah.
But you also don't want everybody to like it. So, like, when we built my wife's truck, the High Plains Drifter, nobody said anything bad about it. And I told Jeremy, I was like, I kind of feel we have to do it over again.
Yeah.
Because, like, nobody said anything bad about it. And it's like the Sprinter, people talk shit on it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially all the van people. Because van people, even though they're like, oh, Van Tribe and Van all this other stuff, they see it. It's so overdone compared to most Sprinter vans. They're like, must be nice and all this stuff. I was like, I fucking work for that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, so it has Kelderman's air suspension on it. And those guys are great out of Iowa. And it drives so nice with air suspension. But they're like, oh, it must be nice because you do work for Kelderman. I'm like, yeah, I traded them exactly what that kit cost in photography work, what I would charge someone retail.
Yeah.
So, like, I shot 5 trucks to pay for that suspension. what I would charge a factory.
Yeah.
And it's like, so people don't realize, like, I worked for that. I mean, yeah, I've got sponsors, but those sponsors got photo shoots for it. And it's funny, like KC Highlights, they hooked me up on the Drifter with the old school KCs and this, and I keep going, let me shoot something for you. And they're like, oh, we're good. It's
Yeah.
like, all right. And then Viair used it on some of their boxes on the new lines, the home wrecker. But dude, I'll do photo shoots for those guys too. And it's like, but people don't understand. It's like everybody wants free shit, but nobody wants to work for it.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing that goes into, like, we were talking about all the shit, like doing the video stuff, and like, even though everybody hates this word, but this new world where a lot of us are becoming some type of content creator or.
Well, that's what's funny. There's on that content creator, there's an Instagram page called Are You Sponsored? And like they're taking companies that send, like people send these crazy, hey, I want free stuff DMs to companies, and they're putting them on this Instagram page.
That's awesome.
And it's so funny. And
Well, so like, I found myself in that boat too. So my, like, I'm not trying to plug my advertisement
No,
stuff, but I
fine.
take a lot of pride if I have a sponsor on this podcast, right?
Yep.
And I usually tell them, like, hey, do it 3 months, because I think that's going to give you the best, like, return on your investment to find out if my audience is interested in your products, right? And it's not going to kill you. You'll make your money back, but I don't know if you're going to make 10 times your money back.
Right.
But if you're not selling something, then I don't want you to continue to sponsor me, because I want this to be a viable place for you. And if my audience isn't interested in your products, then at that point I'm just taking your money. And
that's the thing is like people don't understand loyalty too, because everybody walks in, the first person, they'll send a proposal to 5 companies and make the same thing.
Well, see, okay, so that's the other thing is, like, with me, I have to also be able to stand behind and say that the products that I put on my bike is the products that I think you should buy. Like, I don't like, some people have an issue with, like, okay, here's the deal. It costs money to advertise on this podcast. But if I don't have your product, I need your product first.
Right.
I need to see if it fucking
because
works.
you don't want to put your name on something you wouldn't use. So it's like, I have all kicker stuff in everything I've got.
Yeah.
But first time I got into car stereo, talking about words you can't say anymore, I walked into a stereo shop and there was a wall of woofers and it was all kicker stuff, and they played Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. And it drops the faggot word in that.
Yeah.
So it's been my go-to stereo song forever, but I've been hooked on kicker since the first day I heard a loud stereo playing Money for Nothing by Dire Straits.
Yeah.
And so I still run kicker. Like, I had the original kicker box back in the day when I cruised Broadway in Missouri with Sir Mix-a-Lot, and
Posse's on
Broadway. But
that was a good ass album.
It was Broadway in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. It wasn't, Beepers. It was Capahal Park, but it wasn't, it wasn't anything cool, But I've had kicker since day one, and it's like half the time I shoot stuff for kicker and just give them pictures because it's got kicker stuff in it. It's like, I love everybody that works at kicker. When I go to kicker, I knock on the door and sneak into the install bay. I don't even go in the front where all the money people are. It's like, because I hang out with the guys who build stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like Randy Botts and Tim and Fletch and all those guys that work there. It's their family.
Yeah.
And it's like kicker always hooks people up, and it's like everybody makes good stereo equipment now. And it's funny because remember when there was like 800 stereo companies, and I was like 8, and it's like they stuck around, and it's all, but it's crazy, but it's little tiny Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I've always tried to, or what I've been trying to do with this podcast is reach out to people for sponsorships that have products I already use.
Right.
Therefore, we can get past the whole, like,
that too. And if it's like something you like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've customized enough bikes in my life and ridden enough bikes far to know who makes products that I really like.
Yep.
And who makes products I think I would like a lot.
Well, I tried to pull that whole, hey, I'm building a SEMA vehicle, and I built the Sprinter, and I want that ladder that's on the side from Illuminous. I was like, hey, I'm building a SEMA vehicle, and I built a SEMA vehicle last year, and blah, 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 and all this. And they're like, yeah, we'll knock $20 off the shipping or something like that.
Well, so that is the thing, is that the waters are so muddied.
Oh, they are.
Everybody that has over 3,000 followers that are wanting some kind of sponsorship, and that's why I said it to me, like, you know, me riding my bike all over the country and taking some type of like care into the pictures and the content I'm grabbing. That, like, all these pictures and Mount Rushmore and fucking PCH and all this, those photos that I post online are also for the people that gave me products so that they can have some content to show their audience.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like, if you're just going to be the dude that asks for free shit and then jumps on and does a little really shitty YouTube video because you're a vlogger now. Like,
well, so what killed a lot of that too is the whole mentality when they were building mini trucks for SEMA, and like everybody have a new dually every year laid out. And in the grand scheme of things, how many parts is that really selling? But like, dudes would get all these free parts and never finish a truck. Or they would do this thing like, I'm going to take it to 20 shows next year and all this other stuff, but they'd sell the truck at SEMA.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, companies weren't getting rich. So for a while, what companies were doing and was smart is like, we'll sell you the part. If you complete this, we'll refund your money. So that's what a lot of them started doing.
So that's the thing. So that goes back to the integrity of the person that, like, taking your role as some type of brand ambassador, sponsor, whatever the fuck you want to call yourself or whatever it is. If you take that job seriously, then you know, the loyalty that you hopefully will create through working with these companies. Like me, I don't have it in me to do somebody wrong. I will go broke
well,
and out of my house
I am,
to before like you know, if the times I've built bikes, you know, like when Jeff Holt a couple years ago, the last year before he got kicked out of, or whatever, out of Hot Bike.
Well, before they closed it all.
He told me, he's like, hey, dude, I'd like to have you as a builder on the tour. Dude, I bought 3 bikes just to be like, hey, dude, okay, I got a Bagger, I got an FXR, and I got a Dyna. Which one do you want me to build? I take it seriously for opportunities, you know what I mean? Because opportunities are what helps all of us get to the next levels in our careers. And so when a big company gives me the opportunity, to me, like, my whole life is on the line.
Well, that's the way I am, is like when a big company will hire me and they want to put their brand around my style of photography and do an ad, or like Mac Tools lets me do their calendar and all this other stuff. It's like, I don't really get nervous. You know, it's like, I don't like that stuff. None of that stuff ever phases me because I'm just doing what I do. And it's, you know, it's tough. And like, I think a lot of people just, I remember I used to go to like these, I think it's worth it to go watch videos and do seminars and all this other stuff. And even if you pick up one little piece, it was worth it. Like, I sat through this whole 2-day seminar with this wedding photographer, and I was just like, just staring off into space. And all of a sudden he said something on part of his technique he did, and it was like, oh shit, that'll fix what I'm doing. And it's like, it was worth me sitting there for 2 days and spending $300. You know, and it really was. And it was like, because he didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. And then he got to the last day and he goes, oh, I do this for this. And I'm like, oh shit, that
worth it.
light bulb ding. It was worth it to sit there for 2 days, you know? So it's hard sometimes to, you know, figure it out. You know?
Well, like, you know, continuing to educate yourself and put yourself in places to learn more stuff, like that's every day. Like, I find it now in my later 30s that, like, I wish I just had not as good as I am or whatever you want to say, but I wish I would have cared more about the time that I had in my 20s, because I had all kinds of it.
Well, that's the thing. We talked about that earlier, is I always say the same thing, but then I think I wouldn't be where I am now. I may not met my wife. I may not, you know, I might have actually, if I had more success, I might be somebody's photographer working for a company. You know, it's like, but I feel like I'm doing what I was born to do right now. You know, I mean, I guess I was born to be broke. I always joke with my wife, and she hates this analogy, but it's like, I feel like I'm one of those movies, like, where the people come up out of the water and the boat's gone. So I'm treading water, so I'm fine. You know, but then you look down, there's sharks below you. But they're not messing with you, you know, because you're on the top. But if you stop trying to swim, then you sink down to the sharks. You know, so it's like, I'm treading water. Like, I'm not up in the boat. But I'm also not down with the sharks. So it's like, things could always be worse.
Well, you know, like, I guess this could apply to you too, because like you don't necessarily have a house payment.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Well, I
things,
have a Sprinter payment,
Yeah.
so I mean it's
pretty close, right?
Yeah.
But you know, the same thing is like some people might look at me and through what I show the world through Instagram and think that I got money,
Oh, yeah,
or
it's
whatever
the same
case
thing
may
when
be.
they see
But,
mine, yeah.
but my bike is nice because I have a $3,500 truck,
Right.
That, you know, fortunately runs pretty good for $3,500. You know, it's not. I don't have a new truck payment, and I don't live in a new house. I don't have a lot of those things. I omit it having those kind of things in life so that I can have this one nice thing.
Yeah. Well, it's
You
like
know?
my wife's truck. Everybody thinks it's one of those dollar SEMA trucks, and I'm like, no, that's one of those $40,000 SEMA trucks. You know, that I had to buy a truck and then build it. You know, so it's like, you know, we make payments on that truck. You know, and my wife doesn't like to drive it because it's too nice, she says.
Yeah.
You know, so unless she's going to a bike event to put her bike on the top of it, or unless someone with a Jeep starts talking smack about how nice their Jeep is, she rolls it out for that. Or then when I'm home, I drive it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's got 150,000 miles on it too.
Already?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a 14. So I have a 64 Corvette van with probably 190,000 miles on it total. Then the Sprinter's got 175,000 on it. The truck's got 150,000 on it.
So I was just thinking about it, like that Tahoe out there. It's an 03. I bought it in 17, and I've driven it to San Francisco and back 6 times.
Yep.
I bought it for $3,500. It had 150,000 miles on it. No issue so far. Knock on wood. And I just bought a computer to do all the video editing and live streaming I'm planning on doing for $3,000.
Yeah. Well, that was what was dumb is, so my wife talks to me. I'm becoming like this curmudgeon with technology.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you know, you saw my camera. I have a really nice medium format digital camera. It's super high end, stuff like that. So, but it's a great tool for what I do.
Yeah.
And then the computers, I'm just like, whatever the new MacBook Pro is, I'm fine. So my wife sees that new Wacom, you can draw on it and all that stuff. And it actually was a game changer for doing what I do.
Yeah.
You know, like layers and stuff like that. So then I have an old MacBook Pro that I'm doing video on.
Yeah.
Well, of course, 4K, the old MacBook Pro won't run 4K.
Dude, this right here. So I bought this MacBook Pro right when we started this podcast because we had a little piece of shit.
Just 5 minutes ago? No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Not this podcast.
But so I bought this and I flipped out. I traded 2 helmet paint jobs and I put money in because at this time I wasn't getting the kind of money I get for helmets now. And so I got this and I'm like, fuck, man. I at the same time I had bought a Dyna for $2,500 and I bought this fucking MacBook right here for $2,800.
Well, we were talking about that the other day with mountain bikes.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I had, because it was going to be a booth bike, you know, Specialized hooked me up with a frame and Olin's hooked me up with suspension and all this other stuff. But like without paint, that's a $12,000 mountain bike.
Damn.
You know how nice of a dirt bike you can buy with a motor for $12,000? I mean, I don't have that in it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I could never buy a $12,000 mountain bike.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's crazy how
That is
it's
wild.
like, that's crazy how that stuff's gotten
So you kind of
expensive-wise.
mentioned like, you know, the tools, right? So like I have thousands of dollars in that toolbox over there, and then that's whenever I was kind of wrenching.
But this is the same. This is still tools of your trade.
Like this podcast shit. Like, okay, so tomorrow it sucks because these mics I bought on Amazon 2 years ago.
Yep.
And I just finally ordered all new mics, and it's because of our Patreon shit.
All the guys who follow you for your motorcycle shit are gonna hate this podcast. Like, listen to these 2 nerds talking about art.
Dude, that's fuck them. You know what I mean? So,
Well, it's always funny because we always joke because my wife's a math nerd.
Yeah.
And like we'd go to a thing and he's like, I'm like, oh yeah, she's such a nerd, and she's like, oh, let me get him to start talking about cameras if you want. Is like, I'm like, well, no, I'm a geek. There's a difference. You're a nerd, I'm a geek. So,
well, you know, for me, like getting into this world of this camera, photography, videography, audio, it's like it's a different learning curve than it was for me to get into motorcycles. And motorcycles is easy. Like, hey, I can work. This world is blue collar compared to, or white. Is it white collar?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a much different world. Like I joined streaming like fucking chat rooms, and I'm like pulling my hair out listening to these fucking nerds talk to each other.
Yep.
And every time I have a question, just like any chat room in any place in the world, just shit talk. That's it. I'm like, oh, so y'all do this shit in this side of the world too? Just shit talk.
Well, that's the thing is, shit talk is like a thing now, like trolling, shit talking, all that stuff.
Dude, like, so streaming video to do like live streaming, YouTube, Facebook, and do it all with professional cameras and switchers and shit. God damn, that shit is so complicated. You know what I mean? And so I've been trying.
That's why people have a person that runs all that shit while the other person just sits there and talks.
Well, I don't have that kind of money in this.
I know.
You know what I mean? So it's like I'm having to learn this shit and paint and stay relevant in this and ride bikes and do trips and try to create some more content to give people so that they stay interested in what we're doing and grow this podcast and get better. And you know,
it's funny when you see
me, right?
It's funny when you see like a famous person start a podcast.
Yeah.
So it's like they're in a studio and they have a guy that's Googling stuff for them, and they have a guy running sound and a guy doing this, and it's just you with a computer and a mixing board and a couple microphones, and it's like there's nobody else in this room.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just funny because it's like it's just a totally different level.
You know, my brother helped me start this, and he showed me how to do this shit. And you know, so I'm forever grateful for that. That, you know, I also showed this motherfucker how to do everything he knows how to do. So trade off, we're even, right? But all this stuff I'm trying to do, this studio that I'm building up here.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing this place.
You know,
when we get it all together.
I'm doing all this because I'm investing in this because I think it could be my future, or it could be a part of my future, and I'm hoping that it pays. You know, unfortunately, you know, I don't know if I feel this way, but I think that some people feel bad about saying like, yes, I do a podcast that I make a living on. You know, I'm not. Like, it doesn't pay my rent, but I mean, it bought that board right there, and it bought the new mics for this month. So it's slowly growing and building and making money, and you know, like, it's a lot of fucking work.
The thing with the technology too is like back in the day, if somebody bought a new motorcycle, you could take, oh, here's an old panhead. Oh yeah, I can fix this. It'll actually work. But you can't buy somebody's 10-year-old computer and then do the shit on it. You know, you have to have current stuff.
So that's what pissed me off about this. So this MacBook is supposed to be the best one that they have. And then I go to start doing this. I buy all this program shit to do the video switching. And we did a podcast, and this computer is not strong enough to switch videos. It doesn't have the graphics card capabilities, and because it's a Mac, I can't put one in there.
Put one in it.
So that's why I had to go to a desktop, which the desktop means I can't do it mobile. So that's when I'm sitting here with this $3,000 computer. And so I'm like, okay, so now I got to do a studio. And we were just going to go to like where we just were downtown and rent one of the small spots. Then I was like, fuck, now renting one of these places is going to cost.
Well, then you have to drive back and forth.
It's going to cost $1,500 minimum a month. To do this, I'm gonna have to put $3,000 down to get into the place, then fix it up to do the studio, and then I'm gonna have a hard time being able to afford the rent.
I thought
here.
people just did these in their mom's basement.
They kind of do, but you know, like, you know, we were talking about this earlier, right? Like, maybe for our industry, it might suck that I'm the guy that's trying to get the stories from Yaffe and from Rick Fairless.
But the stories need to be told.
So I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to build.
I have a funny thing in my Sprinter van in there right now, and there's a famous guy he's famous for flaking on shops, but he's also probably the most talented guy in all the hot rod industry. And he left this shop and just left everything. Left a cat. I mean, he's famous for this stuff. It's like I'm not going to mention his name, but everybody who's into hot rods knows who I'm talking about. But he's worked and painted on some of the most iconic hot rods in the world, and he's a friend of mine. But his paint is second. I mean, he can do it all, so I was at this shop, and it's been a while since he left there, and there was this briefcase, and they're throwing it away. Well, they open it up, and it's got like some stencils for painting and stuff in it. But I start looking, there's like all these pictures of him working on iconic hot rods, and they were throwing it in the dumpster. And I'm like, I can't let this history go. And it's like, even though I talked to some of the builders that had the cars, like, oh, we got plenty of pictures of that. I'm like, but maybe there's one in there. You know, it's like, because the best thing I can hope for, if you ever seen one of the videos of like, they'll grab some 90-year-old photographer that went to all the car shows back in the day, and they're restoring an old, you know, Barris car or something like that. And they're like, do you remember what color this was? Like, my best thing I could hope for when I'm 90 is I'm that guy that they drag out of the old folks' home. to tell them what color the wheels were or something like that on it, and then I'm pulling my little photo book out. That's the other thing that sucks is like we don't print nothing anymore, so some of this stuff's just going to be gone.
Well, that's why I was saying that, man. Like, I want when people like I'm trying to have a grand opening, not grand, an anniversary, because we started this business in 2015, the Fast Life Garage, January 2015, and then we started the podcast January 2018.
Yep.
And so like January IMS show Dallas, we usually have a little party for our anniversary. And so I want to set this place up, and I want people to walk in, and I want them to see badass photos.
Yep.
Of like the trips I've been on or whatever.
But that's the thing with you, because you actually have, that was cool, is like you're just like, I just want to be better at doing this so I can show people where I've done and where I've been.
Yeah.
And it's like I told you, like everybody should take pictures. And it's like everybody takes pictures of their phone and they're like, oh, my cloud's full, delete all.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there's like some legit memories in there. And especially if you're 25.
Yeah. Like
when you're 50, you'll be like, oh, remember that time we went here? Oh, yeah, I don't have pictures of that anymore because I deleted them because my iCloud was full, So, like, I started now where I just upload them onto the same server that I load all my photo shoots on. I'll just start a gallery. I'm like, oh, this is 2019. And I just dump them on there because it'll take them right off my phone.
How do you feel like, do you take so much photos that do you look at it as work, or do you still look at it as like fun. Something you passion for? So, like your wife or your family, like, do you like taking, are you the guy doing candids and shit like that?
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, we got friends. Like, I have a friend in Burnett that I stay with all the time, and he's the best. And we ride mountain bikes and stuff. So we have selfies of us out in the desert and
Burnett,
stuff.
Texas?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
so I had my hair cut.
Ink State Park, man.
So
it's one of the best.
Here's the crazy thing is there's a barber shop in there with Texas' second oldest barber. And he's like 90-some years old. So I had my hair cut there like 2 days ago because it's awesome. But the first time I went there, it's like he's cutting my hair. He's got a straight razor, and I just see him like, like shake his hand a little bit, and I'm like, this is the end. I was like, maybe this wasn't a smart idea, but it's like there's so much cool small town America.
Yeah,
it's like there is a 90-year-old barber that's still straight razor.
There's a story there, man.
There's so many stories. It's like you could travel the country, and every town has at least one story. Mm-hmm. It's like hell. It's like you can just go into meat markets in Texas and look at cool shit. Go to barbecue places. I have a friend who has an Instagram page called Barbecue Confessional. And so with all my travels, I go to all these barbecue places. And I went to this place, Truth Barbecue in Houston. Best brisket I've ever had, bar none. Mm-hmm. And you cut it with a plastic knife. So I post that. And then I'm friends with Tyler's in Amarillo. So he's all like, I see how it is. So it's like, so you want to make these posts. And but Tyler's has the best jalapeno cheese sauce you ever had. But then there's Corkscrew in Houston and all these other places. And they're all like, well, you've never had ours and never had this. So now it's like, I'm going to gain 300 pounds next year.
So you're going to be a food critic now.
No, I'm not good enough to be a food critic. But it's like looking at paint jobs. You like what you like, and it's like everybody's all like, what's this and it's that. And it's like, well, it's just not what you like.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not the photographer for everybody. And I totally understand that.
Yeah.
It's like, most 80-year-old guys don't want me shooting their car.
Yeah.
But like the 30, 40, 50-year-old guys think my stuff's cool, and then all the 20-year-old photographers are all like, oh, I didn't know I liked your stuff because you don't get credit for everything anymore.
They call you OK Boomer?
Yeah. So the funny thing is I lost train of thought because it's all like squirrel, and then I'm all hopped up on Whataburger sweet tea.
So yeah, that is what's. I haven't really noticed it in the custom paint world, but like people that are young or getting into it, they seem a lot more open-minded to the people that's come before them. But I do see how that could be an issue for photography because it's such a bigger industry, and there's so much more people trying to do it, and there's so many different areas.
Well, it's like I went over to Gas Monkey and shot their international, and I shouldn't say stuff like this, but their social media guys show me pictures he took, and I'm like, that shit's better than mine.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's also, you hate your own stuff.
Yeah.
So like when you look at it, it was like, that shit's amazing. I'm like, yeah, that stuff sucks. It's like, I'm talking about my stuff, not about somebody else's stuff. But he's like, and there's a guy, photographer for Kenny's Rod Shop in Idaho. Like I got sent there to shoot pictures, and the guy's showing me his stuff, and I'm like, you should shoot. I don't know why they have me shooting. They should just take your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, your stuff's better than mine. But it's like the young guys are just so good.
Yeah.
And it's all post. And it's like, that's why I've had to start learning post, because everybody looks at my stuff and thinks it's Photoshop, but it's all.
Well, yeah, just looking at your screen and like.
Yeah, until you see it on the back of the camera, you don't understand. I mean, you have to edit everything now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no not editing, but they also had to develop film. You know,
I'm looking at those and I'm like, fuck, dude, if I could snap that and walk away with that, I'd be happy. But I mean, obviously, not to take away your skill, but like a mirrorless camera pulls out such high quality.
Well, that too, and I deleted 9 billion really bad photos over 25 years too before, you know. Yeah. And I can't imagine. It's crazy because, you know, like back in the day, dudes were shooting Polaroids and they had to long exposure, flash this light, flash this light, flash this light, flash this light, and hope it worked on the film.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember one time when I first got in this industry, painting, I was working at Other Side Customs, and this guy came in. He found me through some channel back in like 06 or 07, and he was a photographer for I think it was the Korean War or some war, not World War II. He was too young for that.
Yeah.
It was either Korean or Vietnam, but he was a photographer for it. Like, and he had all these shots, and he wanted to do a helmet with some of the shots. Yeah. And of course, like at that point in time in my life, I'd paint anything. You know what I mean? But it was kind of cool. But like, you know.
Yeah, I did that. I did the. In our magazine, the Repaint Reporter from PPG, we did a whole tutorial where Kyle did that whole newspaper, taking newspaper and scanning it and putting it into the prints and stuff. He did it on this bomb, and it was like all this World War II pictures and stuff. And it was like, that stuff was so cool. And it's just like, you just sit there and watch somebody do that, and you're like, well, it's like when I did one of those for Hot Dog, and all he's doing is he started out painting surfboards back in the day.
Yeah.
You know? And dude's been... He's old. Don't tell him I said that, and he'll never hear this. But like, we did this tutorial of him. He did that fuzzy checkerboard thing he does. Like, it's like it's.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But the thing that was cool is watching him pull tape. Like, he pulls all the lines at one time, and it's like, I just wish I could pull tape like that guy. You know, it's like, I don't even care if I could paint like that. I just want to be able to pull. And he posted this crazy video too on Instagram where. He was cutting the tape line with a razor blade on a flame tank and was just turning the tank and cutting it with a razor blade. And I'm just like, freaking ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we have all this wealth of knowledge of guys like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I hope you could hook up with Hot Dog and guys like that and get him on your podcast. And I'll do whatever I can to get you hooked up with him.
Honestly, man, like the more people that like yourself and Brian and people that kind of have a network of people bigger than mine.
Yeah. Well, I should tell that story too, because how Brian and I met and how Hot Dog and I met was through Courtney Hollowell, the magazine editor who passed away several years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I can also tell you a beard story, how I have a beard this long. So Courtney was always about connecting the dots. Mm-hmm. Like, even if it cost him money when he was a photographer for freelance for magazines, even though he worked for that. Like, when I shot Hot Dog's bike for Street Chopper or Hot Bike, one of the two, I ran on one of those two, and Courtney could have got paid for it. But Courtney wanted me, he knew that Hot Dog was one of my idols. And I grew up looking at his paint work on mini trucks and Riddler cars and stuff like that. And he goes, well, you want to meet him? I was like, I'm supposed to shoot his bike. You shoot it. And I'm just like, I kind of didn't want to because you never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
And so when I met him, he was the best. And it's like super humble. And then after we were done, we're like, hey, come back to the house. And he's showing me old stuff that he worked on, Monster Garage stuff. And that might have been kind of pre-Monster Garage, actually. But like, there was stuff they were working on at Monster Garage.
Yeah.
And it was just flake panel. That's what I'm into, you know? And it was just like, and then after that, it's like he just called me one day. He's like, hey, I know you're out traveling. Just want to make sure things are cool. And it's like, he does that Wiener Wednesday thing where he has hot dogs every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to do that. If I'm somewhere where I can get a hot dog on Wednesday, I'll take a picture and post it on my Instagram stories. But he's just been a cool dude. So it's like, for the one chance, it was. So Courtney hooked me up with him. And then he hooked me up when I did the baggers the first time, when we'd made that thing where I told you I didn't know what a bagger was. And Courtney sent me down there to shoot those. That's when I met Brian Clark for the first time, too. And Brian and I have been instant friends, you know. And he was my first trip to Bonneville, too. And I wound up doing Carly's senior pictures on the salt.
That's cool.
And which was pretty cool. And I learned my lesson about salt is I was wearing like a thick canvas work pant, and I was laying on the salt taking because I lay on the ground and take pictures. Well, I got back to the hotel room that night and set them in the corner, and they just stood up because they had so much salt in them.
Holy
so
shit.
I learned my Bonneville lesson on that. But it was cool to go hang out with them, as you know, to see them like Carly like not get a record by like a couple miles an hour and the heartbreak and all that stuff. But that was the first time I really got to hang out with them as a family and realize they were the real deal.
Yeah.
You know, so I met them through Courtney, and I met so many good people through Courtney, but it also made me go, this whole scene's bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And it's all, whether it costs me money or not, people that should know each other should know each other.
Yeah.
You know, and so like when I'm at a show, if like, have you met this person? So there's this really badass bicycle painter named Tony Bauman out of Bellingham, Washington. He's made rad by Tony. Everybody that has a custom painted bike thinks Tony, Tony gets credit for every custom painted bike,
Yeah.
and he's that badass. So like my bike, when we debuted at Sea Otter with Olin's, they were like, Tony paint that? Tony paint that? Like everybody would say that. And I was like, no, this is a Lucky. But nobody knew in the bicycle industry, don't know who Lucky Strike is. But motorcycles are like, oh shit, cool. You know? So I got him at SEMA this year. So we're walking around. He's like, oh, there's Dennis Gage. I'm like, oh, I know Dennis. I was like, you want to meet Dennis? He's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So I got to introduce him to people that he's only seen on TV.
Yeah.
But it's all about, but you never know. Like Tony might paint something. Like he paints bikes for Ken Block, which is funny is there's a recent issue of J Lone's Garage. And they mimic like Ken Block's going to take Jay to ride mountain bikes. Well, one of the mountain bikes are custom painted. Well, he drops one of them on the and runs off, and it's one of Tony's custom painted bikes.
Yeah.
You know, so it's funny how even if it's someone not even in the industry, you know, it's like if you're somewhere and I know somebody collects helmets or something like that, I'm like, I'm introducing it to them.
Yeah.
Or even if it's somebody you want to know and I know, I'm like, you want to know Hot Dog? I want you to know Hot Dog. You know, I mean, of course and I have no skin in that fight of, you know, on Hot Dog.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't change my life, but it's like, people should know each other. You know, it's like, Charles Armstrong is like, I'd hang out anywhere with Charles Armstrong, you know, Charles, you know, and it's like, but people should know Charles Armstrong. You know,
Exactly.
there's so many great people out there that should know each other. And even though it's a worldwide hobby and enthusiasm we're into, it's still small.
Yeah.
So like everybody should know it. Like even though there's a ton of photographers, there's plenty of work. Even though there's a ton of painters, there's plenty of work.
Exactly.
It's all on how hard do you want to work, you know? And that's what it comes down to. How much do you want to hustle?
You know, I would say this about like photography versus podcasts is that there's a lot of other people that do motorcycle podcasts.
But you're going to ask different questions than the other guy.
Exactly. So your photo is always going to be your style. And like, you know, my conversation with you, even if you went and did the Dixon Flannel podcast after this, I'm sure that there might be some similarities in the conversation, but it's going to be a different episode.
It'll still ramble just as bad as this one does.
But that's what's good about all this stuff is just
So,
you know.
so getting back to Courtney, because I just squirreled on you there for a second. So Courtney introduced me to Brian, and then so that led me into like everybody's got to know everybody. So it was funny. Everybody always asked me why I have such a long beard, and it's basically mainly laziness. And but my Corvair van went to SEMA 3 times. The first year I took it, Courtney sees me, and I got a haircut and shaved and washed the Sprinter. I drove it 2,300 miles to Sprinter. I drove it 2,300 miles to SEMA. And Courtney goes, you're a sellout. It's like people should just know you for you. You shouldn't have to put on a suit. You shouldn't have to cut your hair. It's like you're John Jackson. You should always be John Jackson. You should be not stock photo. You should be that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fine. Next year for SEMA, I won't shave. And then he passed away before the next SEMA, and I haven't shaved since.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been 6 years.
God damn.
Yeah, so I've always had like long goatee and stuff because like I could grow a mustache at 13.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been one of those guys.
It's usually weird because usually when kids can grow mustaches and beards that much, they go bald quicker.
Well, so what's funny is every male in my family was bald at like in their 20s, 30s, and it's like I kept hair longer than everybody else, so I've been pretty lucky. So, but
my shit's creeping hardcore. But
yeah, well, I'm getting the I guess they call it a widow's peak or whatever it is, this thing that goes up the side. And then I can't stop wearing hats. So, like, I'm always wearing, like, a flat bill, and I have a cowboy hat and stuff like that I wear every once in a while. And people be like, I'll take my hat off, like, oh, shit, you got hair. And I'm like, yeah. It's like, well, usually when people have a long beard like that, they don't have any hair.
I hate it when people that have perfect hairlines, they do buzz cuts. I'm like, dude, you don't know what you're fucking.
Oh, yeah. It's like every time there's a charity thing, and they're like, you should cut that for this. And it's like, I'm afraid it won't come back. It's like... And it's like, I don't think I have that shave my head bald and look good kind of guy, I don't think, because I had a lot of bad decisions as a kid with rock fights with kids in the neighborhoods and stuff. So I've had stitches and done dumb jump swings over dishes and stuff like that. It's so funny, we were talking about the other day with mountain biking, is I remember jumping just like an orange crate Schwinn off of wooden ramps over ditches all the time when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And now when I go out to ride mountain bikes, it's like, are my feet in the right position? Is my body in the right spot? And then I'm hitting like a jump like 2 inches tall, and it's like, I don't know if I'm right. And it's like, I don't ever remember thinking, am I in the right spot on my bike when I was 8? It's like now it's...
To be fearless once again.
Yeah, pretty much. I think everything comes around and goes around.
Yeah.
So like some of the stuff you see it go away, and it's like, my wife calls it my road luck. So I was driving my 64 Corvair van to SEMA one year, and it slung a belt, because that's what Corvairs do. Well, the belt tensioner stripped a bolt on it, and I didn't have a helicoil to fix it. And I was on the road for all of 3 minutes when this guy with a truck and trailer pulls up behind me and goes, I thought this was a Corvair van. And I'm just like, I don't want to talk to somebody. I'm broke down on the side of the road. Come to find out, the guy was the president, or was the ex-president of the New Hampshire Corvair Club of America. And he goes, hey, I know a Corvair shop down the road, and I'm going to call ahead and see if he has the part to fix it. So he called ahead and he goes, yeah, the guy will take care of you and all. So I'm on my way to SEMA. I'm supposed to pick my wife up at the airport the next day and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, cool. He goes, my trailer's empty. I'm on my way to California to pick something up. Let's just drive it on the trailer. Drove it on the trailer. He took me to this place.
Nice.
Dude wouldn't let me pay for gas. And then I finally let me pay for a hotel room for him down the street from, we were in Albuquerque. So this happened at the New Mexico state line. If you've ever been on 40, it's a long way from the New Mexico state line to Albuquerque.
Tucumcari or something like that.
Tucumcari or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I broke down right after that first rest area. Mm-hmm. So it was almost the state line. So the dude hauled me all that way, wouldn't take any gas money. He goes, I'm going this way anyway. Mm-hmm. And then he drops me off. I'm like, let me at least get you a hotel room for the night. I was like, I go in, get a hotel room. The guy calls me. The guy stayed up all night and fixed it. Called me at 6 a.m, said it was ready. So I went to go. I knocked on the dude's door. No answer. I was going to try and buy him breakfast. Went down. Truck and trailer's gone. 6 o'clock. And we got there at like midnight.
Yeah.
Truck and trailer's gone at 6 a.m. And then I walked down to the deal. The guy charged me $50, gave me an extra belt, gave me some extra parts, gave me an extra axle, because those things, the Corvair vans don't have stays on the axle, so the axle goes bad, the axle just falls out. Mm-hmm. So he gave me an extra axle, because he said, I know these are hard to find on the road. Here's your extra axle. Charged me $50, sent me on my way. Never saw the guy again.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, and then what was funny is I was in that area where he was from, and they're like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. It's like, he was always such a good guy. And I was like, well, if you see him, tell him I said thanks. But it's like, that stuff has happened to me my whole life on the road. I broke an axle outside of Chattanooga on my Corvair van, and it was infancy of Facebook and all that stuff. And I posted, broke down the side of the road waiting on a rollback. Dude rolls up on his motorcycle. He goes, hey, I just lived 2 exits up, saw you broke down, figured I'd come hang out with you until the rollback gets here, make sure you're safe. Just hung out on the side of the road with me. It's like the country's full of great people.
Like they say, the road provides, man.
Yeah, it does. So, the road really does provide.
I've been fortunate. I've had setbacks on trips on the bike, but I've never had.
You've had a bike stolen during the podcast. I mean,
other than the bike getting stolen, I've never had to.
Well, I would say like a hotel setback, right? That really wasn't a road setback.
But yeah, it's so yeah, the road does provide, and it does help to have a little bit of knowledge on how to keep it on the road.
Well, that's the thing so when the wife bought the Corvair van for me, I knew nothing about Corvairs. I just wanted a 60s van. And then Corvair people just came out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like we always made that joke that if you see a guy with a running Corvair, he's probably got 5 not running at his house because it took those 5 to get that one running.
Yeah.
So Tim Strange from Strange Motion built a really badass Corvair for his wife, Carrie. So we were going to start a club of people who only owned one Corvair because it would be a small club of like 3 people.
Yeah.
You know? So it would be like the one Corvair, solo Corvair club. But I've met so many great people because of Corvairs. Like the first time an axle went bad on it, it was in Nashville.
Yeah.
And if you're part of the Corvair Club of America, there's a little book and it has all the members in it. So I called the local guy, he's like, yeah, I got an axle. So I go to his house, his whole basement's Corvair parts. It looks like a Napa, and it's just Corvair parts. He's got like 15 Corvairs, and they're all running. And but that's just what he tinkered on for a hobby. And so he pulls out a chair, gets some lemonade, and goes, all right, I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm not doing any favors if I change it for you.
Yeah.
And he's like, take those bolts out and show me how to do it. And I got to where I could change an axle in like 30 minutes.
Damn.
You know, and
That's pretty cool that it's that accessible.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that 60 stuff is accessible and you can fix it. And it's like, but my DPF system failed on my Sprinter van, and a Mercedes dealer wants $6,000 to fix it. You know, it's a $3,500 part. You know, it's like can't fix that on the side of the road. And
yeah, that's the scary thing about a lot of the new stuff. So.
Yep.
So
that's another reason why you got to keep moving forward because you got to keep paying those bills. So
exactly. So we were talking about like I don't know how much you want to share of it, but like we were talking about you considering doing your YouTube thing. Like, what's your direction with all that stuff?
So probably about the same direction as this podcast has been.
All over the place.
Squirrel. So in the perfect world, what I would like to do, I'd like to show my travels and let people see the U.S., which there's tons of that stuff. But I wind up in little hole-in-the-walls that people don't normally see, you know, and great places to eat and great places to ride bikes. So there'll be a little bit of that, just general travel. But I really want to show, like I was telling you earlier, my whole business is built on the guy in the middle of nowhere building hot rods and cars and motorcycles. It's like everybody wants to go to Chip Foose's, everybody wants to go to Troy Champagne's, everybody wants to go to Jesse's. You know, because everybody just lines up to shoot that stuff. You know, like the editor wants to go there because they get to rub the elbows with the famous guy.
Yeah.
And, but dude, I've met so many great people that built one car or built one bike.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many. I'm sure you've painted bikes for guys that just have one bike. You know, and it's like Jeremy has a customer that does like one bike every couple of years, and it's always killer. Like the guy.
Hawkeye?
The Hawkeye guy.
Yeah.
It's always a killer bike, but that's the guys I like.
Yeah.
You know, the guy, and you go hang out with him. He's like, oh, this is my daughter, and this is my town I live in, and I want to shoot it in the town where they're from.
A Donald Trump helmet for him.
Oh, nice.
This is the most controversial helmet on the internet for.
Yeah, but he's from Pennsylvania, so he'll get away with it. But he's a nice guy, and he's a legit good dude.
Yeah.
And it's like there's so many of those good dudes out there. It's like there's guys like Dan Chisholm from Pennsylvania. I shot his 40s custom he did, and it didn't even have the windows in it yet and didn't have all the trim on it yet, but it was a cool car, and it's another one of my more famous photos. But the dude does drag week every year with Hot Rod, and he built a 57 gasser. He wins his class with it, but it's in this little tiny garage in the middle of nowhere in PA.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like that's the guys I want to hang out with. That's what Not Stock Photography was built around, was just I went to Gas Monkey today.
I'd like to say that you're like exposing the world to things that, you know, to the areas that those guys might not have the ability to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to be, my YouTube, in the perfect world, I'd be Parts Unknown from Anthony Bourdain, but it would be like a hot rod motorcycle version of that. But I would never be as cool as that dude.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because
you might be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's you've listened to me talk for like 5 minutes now.
You know, one of the cool things about, like you were saying, like there's so many people that do the travel things.
Yep.
But what I've noticed is that there is tons of it, but the people that follow me and the people that follow you, not all of them are into travel. And not all of them know that they would be until you show it to them.
Well, there's so many good events. So, like this year was my first year doing a lot of stuff for Good Guys. I'd never been to their Puyallup, Washington event. And it's one, and I'm sure I butchered Puyallup. I'm not sure that's how you say it. But the best part of the show, so it's like in a fairgrounds with roller coasters and stuff as the backdrop. So I got to shoot there, and among that stuff was cool. But they let them cruise the show field all night. and then people party in the campground.
Nice.
And it's like, it's all about the people at that show. So like you'll go to Columbus, there'll be 8,000 cars there, and there's a ton of people, and you don't get to see everything. It's like going to SEMA.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's not always the big thing that's the cool thing. It's like their show in Des Moines is great because it's like this it's a lot of cars, but it's still in an old fairgrounds, and it's a beautiful thing. It's 4th of July, there's fireworks, there's a cackle fest, and there's so many good small events all over the country.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to do more of that to see that small stuff because that's where my roots is small town America.
Well, that's what's going on right now with the motorcycle events.
Yep.
Is it the smaller
You were telling me about
events?
your camping events. Like, that stuff sounds awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? It's cool because, you know, to me it's cool because you can go there and be somebody there.
Yep.
And meet people and be a part of the
Well, the best
actual
thing is you can go there and not be you.
Yeah.
If you really want to. I mean, I don't say don't go there and try and be a badass, but it's like work sucks all during the week. Your wife yells at you all week. You know what? On the weekend, you hop on your bike and go to this, or your girlfriend yells at, I guess. And then it might be something you and your wife are into together and you go do that stuff. You know, it's like, so me and my wife, we ride mountain bikes and we go out. Like, my wife's probably tired of cars, but my wife likes it.
Yeah.
You know, but I try to talk her out of not going to SEMA, but she goes to SEMA to eat food.
Yeah.
You know, but it's, you know, so there's stuff you can do with the families too, you know, and there's just so much stuff out there. You got to find it.
Yeah.
And it's like this year I hadn't done it in forever. Like, if you ever get a chance, make that northern trip up the Mackinac Bridge through Michigan, up into the UP to
all my
Copper
boys
Harbor
from
and all
Michigan,
that stuff.
all my boys from Michigan
Dude,
keep talking about it.
It
so.
is, dude, it's crazy too because there's glass bottom boat rides where you can see the shipwrecks. They're complete ships in the bottom
Wow.
of the lake. Like, you can go see that. And it's like, it's just crazy small town. Like, so I never realized, so there's a famous, or the most popular, one of the most popular gauge cluster is Classic Instruments, and they do stuff for that. And John McLeod's a super great guy, and I've been friends since the moment I met him, but he's a small town guy from Michigan, and he rides mountain bikes. But the cool thing is, like, he took me, this is how much cool stuff there is out there. So he's like, hey, do you like boats? And I'm like, well, I can't swim, but I still like boats. So he's like, but he's talking like wooden ships. Mm-hmm. So there was like a shipbuilder in his town that builds these epic handmade wooden boats and like yachts for people. And you go in and they do the instruments for them. And he's like, hey, they'll probably give you a tour. And then I go in there and I'm just like, everything on the boat is made there. All the machine parts, all the wood stuff. And they do the cool, like, Chris Craft looking wooden speedster boats and stuff too. But like, you walk in, there's like, oh, there's this massive sailboat that wouldn't even fit in this room.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, so there's craftsmen everywhere. And it's like, this is just this little bitty teeny town in Michigan. And it's like, but you wouldn't go to this town in Michigan unless you were going to this town in Michigan.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't even know. Like, if John wasn't there and I wanted to say hi and I'd never been, I wouldn't have stopped.
Yeah.
But if you get a chance to make the upper loop, go up the Mackinac Bridge and go up to Copper Harbor, Marquette, all that stuff, dude, it's life changing.
Yeah, I just turned 37 in September, and I still have a lot. I've done quite a bit of riding all in the country, but there's the far corners are hard to get to.
Yeah, so
my goal is to hit every state before then.
I've done Washington before, but I have a friend, Cody, who makes custom bicycle racks, and he's from Bellingham. So I was like, I've never really been. And I went up there, and of course, a lot of it winds up me riding mountain bikes, so I get to see the mountains. But he took me up to Mount Baker up there, and it's one of if you get a chance to go to that northern part of Washington, you're basically in Canada.
Yeah.
And you just ride up Mount Baker, dude. That one's life changing too. There's like Mirror Lake and all this other stuff.
I did a podcast with a guy who actually he owns an internet company right around the corner, but he jumped on his bike and spent 2 months on the road and rode from here all through Western America all the way to Alaska.
Awesome.
And we talked about it on the podcast because I was doing this series for a while and called Road Tripping.
Yep.
And it was just basically trying to catch a dude right after a bike trip,
Yep.
which is kind of hard to do in a local town like this. Yep. But you know, him and another guy did it, and they were awesome because we were kind of trying to hear about their preparations, the part of the trip, walk me through day by day, what was this, and he was talking about, he went through that area you're just talking about, and I want to go to Canada bad, but I got that DWI,
So the year before last, I had to do some PPG work in Canada, and PPG sent me up there. So in that year, I actually wound up in every state except for Alaska and Hawaii, and every province in Canada.
Nice.
In 1 year. And it's funny because like you'll see those RVs that have the stickers for what states they've been in, and I'm just like, mine would be like this thick for every time I went to every state. But dude, this country is amazing, and I think people forget that because it's like my wife wants to go to Paris and all this other stuff, and it's like, have you ever been here? And it's like, there's just so much beauty. But we also run into that whole thing. Like the first time I went to Grand Canyon, like we looked at it like, oh, that's cool. All right, now what? So it's like, there is a little bit of that too, but I like the drive to it just as much as I like actually getting there.
I've always thought that the coolest shit was the stuff that wasn't as popularized. And because
so speaking of that, so everybody goes that main route into Grand Canyon. Well, there's a northern entrance to Grand Canyon where the three canyons meet. So the wife and I, after SEMA last year, I think it was, so
you went north?
We went north because I had to go to Utah. Because I had to do 3 shoots in Utah after SEMA.
So that's how I went on my trip.
Yeah. So we came back through, and all of a sudden we see a sign that says Grand Canyon North Entrance. And I'm like...
Well, right there, like there's that big lake right on the border. I can't remember the name. But you come in, and there's that lake, and then a big-ass, like, fucking bridge over a deep-ass... It's really nice over there.
Yep. So we'd never been that way. So we get to where the gate is. They're not charging you because it's after a certain time they don't plow the road.
Yeah.
So they don't maintain it, so it's free to go in. So we go up. It's still a long ways to the canyon once you get through the thing.
It's like 50. How many miles would you say it's in and out?
Probably 50 in and out.
Yeah.
So we got halfway up. You start going up that little bit of hill, and there's like a cliff drop on the side. Well, there's 10 buffalo standing in the middle of the road, and they all jump over the guardrail. And it's like a cliff, and I'm like, I think we just saw 10 buffalo die. But everybody's like, no, buffaloes do that shit. So we go up to that part of the canyon. It was the most beautiful part of Grand Canyon I've ever seen.
Nice.
And it's like you can walk out on the rocks, and there was maybe 4 other people there the whole time we were there. And it was like, I'm sure if you go there in the summer, it's probably one of the busiest parts.
Yeah.
But man, it was definitely worth it.
I like hitting. There's all those cool places. Like you got your Arches National Park, or however you say that. But a lot of these places are so overrun with the photographers. And
it definitely is. Well, like if you do a Yellowstone in prime season, it's bumper to bumper traffic. But
we were planning on doing Yellowstone after Sturgis next year.
I drove my Corvair van through Yellowstone in April 1 year, so there's still snow on the ground in spots.
Were you able to get through it all?
Yeah, well, it was all open. It was toward the end of April. But what was cool is all the steam coming up from the geysers was all coming through ice and snow, and so it was super beautiful. And there's tons of animals, but Corvair vans are pretty small. So I get to where Old Faithful is, and I just missed it. So it's like every hour.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'll just wait. It'll go in an hour. Well, I get to see it at sunset. It's beautiful. And I take some pictures and blah, blah, blah. And then I decide to leave. Well, there's no lights in Yellowstone, and I'm driving a 1964 Corvair van. So I'm leaving. It's a long way to West Yellowstone from the lodge and Old Faithful. So I'm driving, and it's like full moon night, and I'm like, well, that's nice. So now I can see because I still have 1964 headlights on the Corvair. So all of a sudden I look over, and I just see like an eclipse, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And it was a bull moose standing on the side of the road, raised its head and just like blocked out the moon. That's how big it was. And I was oh shit. And then I go 2 miles and come around a corner. There's 5 buffalo standing in the road. And a buffalo's as big as my Corvair van.
Yeah.
And then finally they wander off. And as soon as I got out, I was like, I'm stopping at the first hotel. And that was in West Yellowstone. It was like no signal, no nothing. It's like a log cabin hotel room. And there's like a hardline phone. They don't have a TV.
Yeah.
And it's just a bed and a shower. And
so how is all the traveling like? Because you're alone most of it, right?
Yep, all of it for the most. Well, when my wife flies in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are you content with that? I mean, obviously you have a network of friends.
I have a ton of network of friends, and I'm on call for like PPG and other companies and magazines, and they're like, hey, if you go here. So like right now I'm contemplating. So like Good Guys needs pics of their giveaway car, which is in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But they may not need it ASAP, so I had a shop in Bennington, Nebraska want me to shoot a car, and then that brown sugar camper in Davenport, I need to shoot it for street trucks.
Yeah.
So if good guys can put off a week of me shooting the interior, I'm going to leave or burn it on Monday morning, go to Bennington, Nebraska, which is Omaha, shoot a Mustang. As soon as I'm done with that, head over to Davenport, shoot the camper, and then head to Atlanta. And then when I'm done in Atlanta, I'll probably go home and drop off the Sprinter, pick up the truck, and I have to go do an ad for PPG with Kyle from Execution Style for his new magazine ad that they're going to do, campaign they're going to do with him. So,
yeah, busy.
Yeah, so, but that's how my life works.
Yeah.
So, like, there's those moments when I'm just, like, tomorrow I'm shooting a guy's Corvette for him. He's like, I've always wanted to shoot one of my cars. And he's gotten the customer, he's having me shoot the car so he can do prints for the customer, who was a good customer of his. So that's my tomorrow photo shoot. So like today, I had a photo shoot today, shot your bike, do the podcast. Tomorrow I'll probably wake up, ride mountain bikes, then go visit a couple shops, then go shoot the vet, and then get as close to burning it as I can for Friday, ride mountain bikes at Spider Mountain Friday. My wife flies in Friday night to Austin. We'll ride Saturday and Sunday and hang around Austin. She'll fly home Monday morning, and then I'll either go to Atlanta or go to Bennington, Nebraska.
Nice.
So, but again, it's guys like shops and individual owners and stuff that keep me on the road and like kick me gas money. And like I just have people sometime walk up and just press some money in my hand, like, hey, here's some gas money.
Nice.
And it's pretty cool. It's like they just, I don't know, they feel sorry for me, or like they know that I'm living the dream, and it's like the dream doesn't always pay the bills.
Yeah.
So
that's cool though.
Yep.
Well, shit, man, we're at 3 hours.
Oh shit,
you were
dude.
supposed to do 38 minutes.
Yeah. Well, so 3 hours and 8 minutes instead.
So
this is the most rambling podcast you've probably ever had.
I enjoyed it, man. Like it's,
I can't guarantee your listeners will like it.
Hey, well, that's on them.
Yeah.
But so tell everybody your website, your whatever it is that you.
My
got.
website is notstockphotography.com, but I haven't updated it in like freaking forever, because who updates their website anymore?
Typical.
So my Instagram is at @notstockphoto. It's NOT stock, not stock. So everybody goes nonstop, and so I just had graphic disorder in Tennessee redo my logo to make it a little easier and readable for people. So I'll have new jackets and stuff like that to make it a little easier to read. But yeah, it's at @notstockphoto on almost all the social media: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff.
Cool. So you do actually currently have a YouTube?
I do currently. I actually have Chris Ryan. You would actually like this if you go see it. Chris Ryan from Ryan's Rod and Custom with his Continental is showing people how he sprays candy. And he's doing it on the side of this Continental. And he actually made a V that shows the paint gun spray, so he could show people how the angle of spraying candy and how you have to do it all in one pass on a big car like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's the little stuff I want to put on there too, because a lot of people don't know what goes into doing something. So like maybe in the future, you and I'll get together and do some little tutorial or something. Because there's a lot of because like when we were talking about the school stuff earlier, there's a lot of people teach here's the master shit up here. And like doing what I do, everybody shows you how to do that master shit, but nobody shows like,
dude,
well, how the fuck do I turn the camera on?
I want to do a tutorial on sweeping. Okay. Motherfuckers do not know how to
I'm
sweep
down for
with
that.
a broom, dude.
Dude, you got to start on the floor. I was like, dude, I swept so many floors. I was really bad at it too, but because
one of the things, like nobody likes to sand, right? But I had a job where I sanded all day long. So when I got to sweep, I got to do something different. Yeah. I fucking loved it. I sweat, dude. I don't say that I like it. I wish that someone else that worked for me here and there had the same enthusiasm to sweep, but it's like a pride thing, like seeing it be a mess and seeing it come together and be like, fuck, man, hell yeah. Pat myself on the back and be like, I fucking nailed that shit, But a lot of people don't want to sweep. It's mindless work, but it's only mindless because people don't take pride in their efforts. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing is you have to, no matter what level it is, like I just saw it at Whataburger tonight, which was funny, is I saw the girl that's going to be somebody in the future. So this one girl was like, the manager goes, hey, you didn't get this part over here. And the girl rolls her eyes and she goes, oh, I'm never going to get to go home. Well, the manager looks out, looks at the other girl, is like, hey, did you get all your stuff done? And he's like, yeah. And he looked, he goes, oh, good job. And he's like, well, you can go home. Well, he looks at the other girl, and she goes to the other girl and goes, you go ahead and go on home. I'll finish it for you. So she went and did what the other girl didn't do to go home, but she was already told she could go home, but she just did it right.
Yeah.
The other girl's job, and that's the girl that'll wind up being the manager of something someday or being somebody.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
But I just saw it tonight, and I was like, look at that girl. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, so every time you go, oh, these kids, you'll see, like me seeing that Larson kid with the CUDA.
Yeah.
It's like, everyone's was like, who's going to do this shit when we're gone? And then you see that kid and you're like, oh,
this
there
person.
he is.
Yeah.
Well, that's like Jonathan Goolsby from Goolsby Customs. I love that guy's work. He's an old mini truck guy, but, you know, he's in his 40s now too. But, you know, when we were younger, the old guys were saying, none of you guys are going to do this. Mm-hmm. But that Goolsby kicks out as good a car as anybody does. Mm-hmm. And he kicks everybody's ass, and he's in his 40s, you know. And it's like, so there's somebody in their 20s now we don't know about, but he's coming, mm-hmm. you know. And it's like, it might be that Larson kid, or it might be, there's a chick, this Erica chick, and she's got 1 billion followers on Instagram, but she painted her own Camaro, you know, and she's from Arkansas. And I met her at SEMA too, and it's like, could be her.
Yeah.
But you don't know now. It's like they're all coming. You just don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's,
you know?
and, you know, there's definitely much more platforms for them to be seen and
Yep.
create an audience.
So when you see the ones like, oh, I want to do that, but how am I going to do it? Fucking sweep the floor.
Yeah.
You know, walk in the door of the shop you want to work for and say, what do I got to do?
Yep.
That they'll give you something to do. You may not get paid for it right off the bat, but they'll give you something to do.
Yeah, just, you know, people just don't realize that the ability to be in, like, I want to learn, like I was saying, this stuff. If I knew somebody that did it, I would just be like, hey, dude, you need your grass mowed?
Well, now people walk in and go, well, how many days off do I get?
Exactly.
It's like, that's the last thing you should be asking for, is how many days you get off.
Well,
you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to end up having a 5 more hour podcast. You get me talking about work ethic and shit.
But you know what I'm saying. It's like, and everybody knows, because it's like I said, I haven't been to any shop that they're like, I have too many guys. I don't know what to do with them all.
I say this a lot. I've been saying this for a couple months now. It's like, we live in this world where everybody's trying to sell the entrepreneurship.
Yep.
Like that's what's clickbaity on YouTube. Yep. That's what's getting people going. But the truth
Gary
is,
V stuff.
Yeah, the truth is, like, being your own boss is a lot of sacrifices and a lot of work. And honestly,
I don't have days off anymore.
Yeah, if you can't be a valuable employee, I don't think that you have it in you to be a valuable employee to yourself.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times too is like, so I was not a valuable employee, but I also didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't figure out what I was going to do till I was.
But were you the dude that was wanting to leave early every time, all the time, or?
No, I usually had to stay late because I didn't do it right the first time. But I would stay and fix it.
Yeah.
You know, or at least until they said, just go home. You know, at least I would be there. And the thing is, like, there's so many shops now, they just want somebody to be there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
We talked about that plenty of times where it's like, you know, I said this, I don't know if I said it on Brian's thing, but I remember when I worked for Other Side Customs, he worked 7 days a week, which I do too. But I would get off on Friday. I'd be off work. And then what am I doing Saturday? I'm like, dude, I can sit here and watch TV.
Yep.
I don't really have the money to go fuck off all day and do shit. I'm just going to go back to the shop.
And make some money.
Not even
learn
fucking
some
make
stuff
money.
to help you make money, you know?
I would just go up there just to hang around because I'm so, like, I was around people that I joked with, and you know, like, that's the thing about working in shops, right?
Yep.
Is it becomes
But if you pay
like
attention, you'll learn something.
It becomes like another family.
Yep.
Another set of friends where, like, you're like just fucking off with each other, joking, you know, trying to say, like, oh, you know, fucking with each other's wives.
Or do like I do, you hang around until somebody buys you lunch.
Yeah.
You know, like, at least you get some lunch out of it, you know? So.
I would have bought you dinner, but you'd already buy it when I got
that's
there.
all right. I would have went somewhere fancier than Whataburger.
Yeah, trust me, we're in Waxahachie. It ain't much fancier than
it's-
Whataburger.
Dude, I was happy you guys had 2 Whataburgers.
Yeah,
Like,
dude,
I
we got
passed
plenty of
one
those.
going to Whataburger.
The thing about Dallas-Fort Worth is we're not short of is Whataburgers and
Twin
Walmarts.
Peaks. Oh, I figured Twin Peaks too.
No, we don't have any of that down here. This side of town, you just get farmersonly.com.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're stopping this now.
Yep, we're stopping this
All
now.
right, say bye.
Yep, bye.
There we go.
Bye, Felicia.
Good times with John Jackson. Thank you, sir, for coming through and giving me 3 hours of your time and your conversation. I appreciate that, sir. You guys check him out and also check out our sponsors, Simpson Motorcycle Helmets on Instagram and .com on the end of that. Dream Rides John on Instagram and teamdreamrides.com and Fast Life at checkout for 10% off. Kevin at Big Bear Choppers, BigBearPerformance.com, and 909-478-7788. Give him a call. Paint Huffer Metal Flake, painthuffer.com, FastLife12 for 10% off. Thundermax EFI on Instagram and shoptmax.com, and Lexan Moto on Instagram and LexanMotorcycle.com, FastLife for 15% off. Thank you guys for doing this or listening to this or whatever, however you consume it. Appreciate it. Looking forward to dropping another one this week. I think I have a guest lined up and should be able to get it done. So hopefully see you Thursday. If not, we'll see you next Monday for sure. And be sure to check out these guys, these sponsors of ours, and check out our Patreon, and just stay up to date with all the shit we're doing on Instagram with Fast Life Garage, thefastlifegarage.com. Or fuck, I'm screwing this. I'm done. I got to get to work. It's Monday. You guys get to work too. We'll see you on Thursday.